Our main character was once called a prodigy of magic, but he was cursed with a rare condition, mana blockage. He spent his entire life researching a completely new method, only succeeding in his old age. But the sheer joy of it gave him a heart attack, and he died on the spot. He was then reborn in another world as a civil servant. His job is to investigate crimes and solve the daily problems of various non-human species. Every criminal he meets goes pale with fear. Okay, enough backstory. Let's get right into it. From a cozy little corner window, an excited man's voice rang out. "You really are a genius, aren't you, Lin Neo?" But in the very next breath, he crushed the boy's spirits, telling him, "But you can never become a wizard." Little Lin Neo's hope was shattered before it even began. The boy quickly demanded, "Why? Why not, master?" Hearing the defiance in his student's voice, the master knew the boy wouldn't give up. Not wanting him to waste his life, he decided to be brutally honest, because a person's mana channels are meant to expand as their body grows. Each word was a dagger in Lin Neo's heart, shocking him into silence. It means if your channels stop expanding, all the knowledge you've accumulated will be useless. But even after hearing this terrible judgment, Lin Neo refused to give up. He thought to himself, it couldn't be true. Why would his mana channels just stop growing? He'd never even heard of a disease like this. Unfortunately, those words were painfully accurate. Even when he grew into a young man, he still couldn't become a mage. He grew discouraged. His mana was exactly the same as it was when he was a child. It was obvious, wasn't it? He had to be cursed. But that didn't mean Lin Neo would just accept his fate. He poured all his energy into researching a special incantation, a type of curse that would embed itself in his very soul, one he could carry into his next life. After years of relentless effort, his work finally paid off when he was a very old man. In his twilight years, an overjoyed Lin Neo clutched his life's work, raising it high and shouting, "I've finally completed it!" On the paper was a hand-drawn magic circle, with detailed notes for a spell designed to expand the mana channels that had stopped growing. "I have dedicated my entire life to this magic formula. If I can't break this curse in this life, my pain will just follow me into the next." With his research complete, Lin Neo finally let his mind relax. Suddenly, his strength failed him, the papers slipping from his grasp as he desperately wished. "So please." In his final moments, Lin Neo fell, carrying a lifetime of regret and one intense desire to at least be able to use magic like a normal person in his next life. And then, as if in answer to his desperate plea, a complex magic circle flared to life. An unknown amount of time passed, until the blaring sound of a phone alarm shattered the silence, waking a man from a deep sleep. The phone screen glowed, displaying 6 a.m. The man reached over and slammed the alarm off. He was a handsome guy with bright blonde hair and piercing eyes. Forced awake so early, he grumbled irritably, "I wish this damn world would just fall apart already." But complaints don't pay the bills, so he dragged himself up for work. His automatic coffee machine was already brewing his usual and unsweetened iced black coffee. Once the cup was full, the man used magic to casually float it into his hand. With a groggy expression, he sipped his coffee and thought to himself, Lin Neo's spell from his past life had actually worked, and in this life, his mana channels had expanded enough for him to use magic freely. Lin Neo was the picture of a typical office worker, starting his day by watching the news. The TV headline flashed across the screen, "A case of illegal magic use discovered." The suspect's quote, "I just wanted to show them some flowers." A news anchor reported that a local resident had been caught using magic on a crowded street. At the time, she didn't have a wizard license from the Wizards Association, but used magic to create floating flower petals anyway. Wanting to bring a little bit of springtime to the autumn day, the woman on screen was ecstatic, raising her hands to the sky. "Cherry blossoms." He put on his glasses, his face turning ice cold as he cursed in his head. Damn it. Imagine going to jail for something like that. When is that idiotic Wizards Association finally going to collapse? The reason he hated that ridiculous association was simple. Unlike in his past life, this wasn't a world where everyone could use magic. In this country, only 2 professions were legally permitted to use magic. First, wizards who belonged to the association, or second, civil servants. But that wasn't the main reason Lin Neo despised the association. He had once wanted to become a wizard and join them, but they had rejected him flat out, saying his magic was too different. Rejected just like that. But he wasn't some overpowered protagonist from a web novel, so he had no choice but to take a step back. He'd finally landed a stable job as a public servant, but in reality, the daily grind was pure hell. Just as Sun An was lost in his thoughts, a call from his team leader snapped him back to reality. He grabbed his phone and answered. "Hello?" An overly energetic voice boomed from the other end. "Good morning, Sun An. You up yet?" Sun An knew that cheerful tone meant trouble was brewing. His already bad mood soured even more. "What is it, Chief? It's only Monday morning, you know." The voice on the phone was trying to sound casual. "It's just a small thing. Remember that complaint from Friday?" Sun An groaned. "Last week? You mean the noise complaint involving the Medusa?" His team leader quickly filled him in on the details. "I actually thought she was the one who filed the complaint." "Huh. If that's the case, it might just be an overreaction. But the weird thing is, the noise wasn't over the legal limit, so the police couldn't make an arrest, right?" After hearing the rundown, Sunan was confused. "So why did they even file a complaint then?" His team leader hesitated before explaining. "Well, there have been multiple reports filed before, so we offered to coordinate with the police." Then, way too casually, he dropped the bomb. "So, you're on site today." Sun An was completely floored, blurting out, "Why me?" His chief just buttered him up. "This is your chance to show us that top-tier magic of yours. You think so?" Sun An's brow furrowed in exhaustion. He immediately shot down the idea. "I'm out. You can handle it yourself." But his boss was one step ahead, of course. "Sorry about that. I've already taken a half-day off. I'll text you the address. Good luck with everything." And with that, he hung up, leaving Sun, and feeling cold to his very core. Some people. So cold that not even the sun could warm him. He muttered a curse under his breath. "Right now, I seriously wish the world would end." But a curse was just a curse, and he still had to go to work. A short taxi ride later, he was at the scene. Sunan stepped out of the car, his mood as dark as ever. He slipped on a pair of sunglasses against the glare, deciding his plan on the spot. Get in, handle it fast, and get out immediately. Arriving at the incident, Sunan flashed his ID at the security guards and said politely, "Excuse me. I'm here about a complaint filed in coordination with the relevant authorities." Seeing the valid ID, the guard simply nodded. "This way, please." The ID read, Public Official He Sun, and Multi-Species Civil Affairs Counselor, Special Resolutions Division 1. He was led inside by a reptilian-looking guard. Before they even reached the door, they saw someone come flying out. The reptilian guard flinched hard. A female guard who saw her partner go down trembled as she spoke. "Please calm down. We're here to confirm the report. Please, someone call for." Before she could even finish her sentence, she let out a scream. Sun An let out an internal sigh. People these days treat regulations like a complete joke, facing an agitated Medusa without protective sunglasses. Absolutely unbelievable. Knowing these colleagues were useless, he walked right past them and headed inside himself. "Pardon me. My name is He Sun An, from the Special Multi-Species Complaint Division." The subject was a high school girl with a head full of green snakes. She was clearly agitated, the snakes on her head hissing threateningly as tears welled up in the corners of her eyes. The girl shouted defensively, "Don't come any closer. I'm telling you, I didn't mean for any of this to happen." This girl was a Medusa, a species whose powerful self-defense instinct is triggered by eye contact, an instinct with a very high chance of turning you to stone through paralysis. Realizing she was a minor, he thought to himself, "A student, huh? Interesting." First things first, he had to calm her down. Knowing what to do, he took a breath and exhaled a gentle breeze. The soft, calming wind enveloped the Medusa girl, and her panic immediately started to fade. Seeing that the girl was no longer in an agitated state, his eyes drifted down to the damaged glasses at her feet. "Good, it looks like that worked." Sunan could see the cause of this whole mess at a glance. He knelt down, picking up the glasses with a sympathetic tone. Medusas have to wear protective glasses because of their innate ability. But I get it. Wearing these things everywhere must be a real pain. Plus, the design is just awful. Finally meeting someone who got it, the Medusa girl was almost moved to tears as she rushed to explain. The little green snakes on her head even started to tear up, matching her mood. "Exactly. Even at school I get bullied for having the most old-fashioned glasses." This was nothing new to Sun An. He'd seen it all before. His face remained cold as he bluntly criticized the glasses. "Not to mention, these things are bulky and overpriced." He muttered a quiet chant, summoning a lens in front of him to scan the outdated pair of glasses. In an instant, dozens of beautiful magic circles filled the air. The Medusa girl just stared in awe while he let the spell work its magic. As he waited, he took a moment to observe her, making an objective assessment. The girl had managed to restrain herself incredibly well. That must be why her mana is so strong, Sun An thought, even though every magical tool in this country is made and sold by the Witches Association. Model. Magic is typically judged by how complex and flashy its magic circles are. But in reality, all that flair is just decoration for the actual mana. A true wizard controls mana not through extravagant drawings, but through precise language. With the spell complete, he presents 3 options, telling her, pick your favorite, or just take them all. The young Medusa girl is floored. Really? He just says he only has these 3 styles. She immediately points to a round pair. I'll take this one. He removes his sunglasses and smiles. An excellent choice. In other words, the more words a wizard knows, the more powerful they are. Revealing his ruby red eyes, he says gently, no one will have to worry about being turned to stone anymore. The moment he speaks, a ring of ancient, mystical symbols appears, swirling around him with the glasses at the center. The symbols pour into the chosen pair like a stream of water. He hands them over. All set. Try them on. Shocked to get the enchanted items so fast, the Medusa girl exclaims, you mean it? The second she holds them, her hair turns back to snakes. At the Wizards Association, she says, moved, this would have taken 2 weeks. Seeing the Medusa girl so happy makes him happy too. His bored expression brightens. Good thing no wizard knows more words than me, he thinks. This is real magic. With the matter settled, his team leader calls. Hey Shunan, what's this file you just messaged me? Junan casually replies, my report and expense claim for today. I added a little extra for the eyeglasses. He made sure to include the special assistant stipend. If he's filing for reimbursement, he might as well get all the benefits. And add 2 hours of special assistance pay. You heard how smoothly it went, didn't you? Now it's his team leader's turn to panic. Wait, hold on. I haven't even clocked out for the day. As he walks past a lamppost, a broadcast laments the work week. I hate Mondays. His job done. Sunan feels refreshed. Come on, cheer up, he says aloud. I'm the one who had to solve problems first thing on a Monday. The mournful song continues. I hate Wednesdays, but I hate selling my soul to capitalism the most. In high spirits, he adds, well then, I'm counting on you until I get back. Around noon, soft golden light fills the government building where public servants like Sunan work. Zunan walks in with his work bag, only to hear shouting, why are you stopping me from filing my complaint? It's an extremely unhappy customer. Please calm down, an employee says, but she snaps back. Are you saying I'm being hysterical? This brunette lady is a centaur, a notoriously sensitive species. The employee is clearly intimidated by her powerful aura. Zunan's good mood instantly tanks. He clutches his aching head and groans to himself. I really just want to go home. He steps forward and asks, what's going on here? His colleague, a burly man with dark blue hair and purple eyes, already has a rope ready. Spotting him, he calls out, Shunan, we've got an issue with a complaint about a magic tool, he explains. The colleague's name is Lai Jiang. He's from the special multi-species complaint department, a goblin. Shunan asks, confused, shouldn't magic tool complaints go to the Wizards Association? Lai Jiang expertly dodges the centaur's kicks as he replies, they should, but there was a procedural error. Shunan watches on, thinking his colleague is great at multitasking. Grasping the situation, Sunan grabs a spray bottle. With a serious face, he says, then we should definitely contact the original complainant. He gives the centaur a quick spray, distracting her just long enough to stop her from kicking Lai Jiang. What did you just spray on me? She screams. Shunan simply points to the huge warning sign on the wall. In case of disturbances, staff may handle the individuals responsible. He keeps spraying until she finally starts to calm down. Then he gently shows her the way out. Just log this as a harmless disturbance, he instructs. I'll handle this case, Lai Jiang. You can get back to your own tasks. The rope? Sunan glances at the rope and pauses for a second. Lai Jiang laughs happily. Thanks, Sunan. With a relieved smile, the rope dissolves into thin air. I was in real trouble there. Seeing this, Sunan can't help but be impressed. No matter how many times I see it, he thinks to himself, goblin magic is seriously amazing. Adjusting his bag, he recalls Lai Jiang's usually aloof image. Considering what's happened recently, his colleague's behavior is definitely surprising. Sun and eyed his coworker's overly cheerful smile with a hint of suspicion. Maybe it was just because he'd only been at this office for a month. He didn't know much about Lai Jiang yet, but his attention quickly shifted to the centaur lady as he politely said, please, tell us your story and have a seat. She had calmed down, but her frustration was still simmering. No, I'm more comfortable standing. I'll just say it from here. The centaur lady let out a heavy sigh and began her tale. I'm very sorry for the scene I made earlier. Every time I think about what happened at the association, I just get angry all over again. She took a deep breath, composed herself, and set an eyeshadow compact on the table. This is the magical tool I bought. Looking at the intricate device, he fought the urge to make a smart comment. Makeup, huh? It seems the association will jump on any trend these days. With a sad expression, she recounted the whole ordeal. I accidentally dropped the item, and it broke. So, I went to their free repair branch. The memory of that day was still fresh. The centaur lady stood at the counter while the receptionist told her they couldn't help, because she had apparently stomped on the item. But I never did that. She tried to reason with them, but they just criticized her instead. I explained that I didn't step on it, not once, but they kept insisting it was my fault. They said that with 4 legs, she could have kicked or stepped on it without realizing. They guaranteed the magic circle was unbreakable otherwise. Sun An heard enough to know exactly who was in the wrong. He was all too familiar with the Witches Association. So instead of admitting they couldn't fix it, their solution was to blame the customer? Pathetic. Even now, the centaur lady trembled with indignation. I admit it's my fault that the item broke, but what they did was blatant discrimination. Her voice turned mournful. A vampire right after me had the exact same problem, and they believed him in a heartbeat. Hearing that, Sun An silently cursed the entire damn Witches Association in his head. A sharp smile crept onto his face as he asked, "And is that why you came to us?" The centaur lady answered instantly, "Yes, I heard that these kinds of issues are handled by the Special Complaints Resolution Department." Sun An was more than happy to take the case, not even needing his boss's approval. "You came to the right place. This falls perfectly within our jurisdiction." His official job title was with the Special Multi-Species Complaint Resolution Department. After all, the unit was founded to resolve disputes and discrimination between different races, helping individuals from all walks of life reintegrate into society. Simply put, if you were treated unfairly because of your species, this was the absolute best place to seek help. Sun An asked gently, "If you don't mind, could I please see the item?" She didn't expect them to take her case so quickly, and her face filled with disbelief. The centaur lady paused for a second before replying, her voice laced with hesitation. "You can look at it, I guess." But then he chanted a spell, and a gorgeous yet completely shattered magic array appeared in the air. Seeing the incredible magic before her, she gasped, "Oh my god, you're a witch?" Sun An just grimaced at the weak, crumbling magic circle, just as he thought. The magic circle was riddled with flaws, all flashy colors, but absolutely no substance. The mana linking pattern was laughably weak. No wonder a simple fall was enough to completely shatter it. Magic, in essence, is a space for communicating with mana. It's the language of mana itself. No matter how flashy your mana pattern is, if you can't form coherent sentences with it, you can't communicate with magic. The more he examined this piece of absolute garbage, the less he understood the people at the association. How could an organization with a monopoly on all things magical sell such a shoddy, defective product? And in the end, it was always the ordinary citizens who paid the price. After his inspection, he made it official. Just as you said. There is absolutely no sign of this ever being stepped on. Hearing his firm confirmation, the centaur lady's face lit up. "See? I told you I didn't step on it." Sun An pushed a form forward and instructed, "Please fill out this complaint form. We'll need to hold on to the magic tool as evidence." She was more than happy to cooperate, enthusiastically saying, "Of course, you can just keep it if you want. I don't ever want it back." As she filled out the form with a moved expression, she asked, "If I have another problem in the future, can I come back here?" Her voice was now filled with sincerity and trust. Sun An welcomed the perfectly reasonable request. He gave her a professional smile and replied, "Of course, our department is always here to assist." The moment he had the complaint, Sun An got right to work. A taxi pulled up smoothly to his destination. He looked at the building in front of him, a small smile playing on his lips as he muttered, "I guess I just can't miss this wonderful opportunity." This place, he had to admit, held zero good memories for him, just the endless grind every single Monday. And now, capitalists ignoring their own customers? He let out a bitter laugh, muttering under his breath. They had completely shattered his dream of becoming a wizard. And now, he stood before a branch of the world-famous Magicians Association, scoffing at the thought they'd even offer him a drink. With that, Sean walked straight into the association and up to the reception desk. "I'm from the Special Multi-Species Complaint Department." The receptionist nearly jumped out of his skin. "Someone from the Special Department?" The man practically ran off, saying, "Please wait for a moment." All while keeping that plastic corporate smile on, even as he was probably cursing Sean out in his head. Of course, the reaction was totally different just because he mentioned the Special Department. So this was the perk of working for a division beyond national control. Not long after, a man in a sharp suit hurried over, a flustered look on his face as he introduced himself. "Long time no see, right? I'm Dong Qian, the branch manager." He didn't waste any time with small talk. "Please, follow me." The association might be arrogant, but even they had to show a little respect to a government official, offering him a cup of tea. Dong Qian's voice was low. Are you saying that a client experienced a situation of racial discrimination at our branch? Sean casually confirmed it. Yes, precisely. The manager knew how serious this could be. His expression grew tense as he tried to argue, but that's simply impossible. We would never refuse after-sales service, free or paid, because that is our duty, and the entire reason the Wizards Association exists. Sean took a sip of tea before setting the cup down, ready to reveal his real reason for being there today. He smiled, a hint of satisfaction in his voice. As the representative for the complainant, I'd like to request an audio recording. Before Dong Qian could even react, Sean hit him with the regulations. From what I understand, all pre-repair consultations are recorded. Dong Qian countered, following protocol. Then I must also ask to see the magical item in question. The smile on Sean's face deepened. He firmly refused. Sir, I need to hear the recording first. Then I can show you the magic item. Inside, he was throwing down a challenge. Let's see you squirm your way out of this one. The manager knew he was dealing with a tough one, gritting his teeth as he reluctantly agreed. Very well. A moment later, the clear voice of the centaur lady echoed from the device. I admit that I did drop it. In the recording, the employee's voice, firm and tinged with sarcasm, posed a question. I'm sorry, but did you perhaps accidentally kick the item? Because you're a centaur, and you have many legs. Isn't it possible you kicked it by accident, given your natural sensitivity? Hearing this, the centaur lady flared up. Why are you bringing my race into this? I'm just here to get my item repaired. But instead of backing down, the employee's words got even worse. But because you are a centaur, we have to consider that possibility. The manager shuddered listening to the exchange, his face twisting as if he'd just swallowed a bug. As an outsider, even Sean was cringing for the guy he'd said it all so loudly. He let out a long sigh, a look of disgust on his face. The complainant also mentioned there was a vampire in line right behind her, also requesting after-sales service for the exact same reason. He spelled it out for them how this other customer was given a refund and multiple discount vouchers, completely different treatment from the one who filed the complaint. Sean tapped his fingers lightly, feigning impatience. So, I'm left wondering, is this really the first time this has happened? Every single word landed on the manager's shoulders with the weight of a mountain. And if it's not the first time, well then, I believe a deeper investigation will be necessary. What do you think? The manager knew his employee messed up, so he stayed completely silent. The moment Sean finished speaking, the manager's attitude shifted completely, humbling himself as he pleaded, This appears to be an error on our part. May I see the magic tool now to properly explain? Sean kept his professional smile. Of course, you provided the recording, so please, feel free to examine it. He handed the item over, and while the manager was busy inspecting it, Sean quickly tapped away on his phone. He sent the audio file to his team leader. Here's the recording. Her shocked reply came back instantly. Sean, did you steal this? He was too lazy to explain properly. You could say that, I'm just trying to score some extra points. His team leader, clearly amused by the drama, sent a laughing rabbit emoji. I can just imagine how much you're enjoying this, can't I? She was right. Sean couldn't argue. He sighed. But what could he do? This case was actually pretty fun. Just as his mood was improving, the manager suddenly shouted out like he'd struck gold, an unbearable look of triumph on his face. I knew it! He looked at Sean excitedly. According to my observations, there are traces here showing a strong impact that shocked the item's magic circle. His voice was giddy and arrogant as he delivered his verdict. This must be what the witch mentioned in the recording, but they were the ones who lied to the customer first. Hearing that audacity, Sunan just laughs. What a classic case of a thief crying foul. The friendly facade vanished instantly. He coolly swept his hair back, his voice dropping several degrees. His sharp brows rose, looking at the man like he was a complete joke. Who deceived who again? The old manager finally noticed the accessory Sunan was wearing, and it all started to click. That single red earring made his heart tremble. Could it be? Is this man actually a witch? He stared back, his expression an emotionless mask. Realizing Zunan was an insider made him even more confused. With a troubled look, he thought, but why would he take a dead-end public service job? If he were a member of the Witches Association, he would already have all the organization's special privileges. Junan could practically read Dong Cheon's mind, and with a serious face, he asked, You didn't really think I'd come here unprepared, did you? More importantly, you've accused our client of being a liar. The manager stammered out a defense, his bravado crumbling. You're a witch, so you should know this, right? This magical item can't withstand a strong impact. Zunan wasn't buying it for a second. His sharp gaze was full of reproach. Not exactly. If you had made it properly in the first place, this never would have happened. He uses his magic to retrieve the makeup compact. With a spell in his mind, incomplete magic circles appear, looking incredibly weak and unstable to the naked eye. But seeing this cheap-looking trick, the manager's face went pale, as if facing a powerful enemy. He just stared, completely stunned. What the hell? Did he just use a spell without a magical tool or catalyst to reinforce it? Zunan calmly pushed the shoddy item forward. Have you seen my spell? From the very beginning, you layered magic seals that should never be used together. Because of that, they're designed to break with even the slightest impact. His eyes flashed with a dangerous red as he asked a serious question. So I have to wonder why you would sell such an incomplete product and then turn around and blame the customer? Is that the so-called witch's duty you people are always talking about? He sneered openly, making the manager flinch. You should have just been honest and admitted you couldn't fix it. The manager knew if this got out, the branch was done for. His face was pure panic, but he still refused to admit anything. It's not that we couldn't fix it, it's that it was impossible, because the magical item was completely destroyed. Seeing the man refuse to own up to his mistake, Sunan simply snapped his fingers. Without a single word, he thought, "Restore." A brilliant magic erupted, repairing the purely cosmetic enchantment. In just a few seconds, the magic array was as good as new, maybe even more stable than when it was first made. Looking at the newly repaired item, Dong Cheon's jaw dropped. No way. He was certain that thing was unfixable. How did he do that? His mind was reeling with confusion and disbelief. What kind of magic did he even use just now? But then, in a flash, he remembered that Han Min had seen this type of magic before, and that memory was even more terrifying. He looked like he'd seen a ghost, pointing at Shunan and shouting, "You're that intruder who tried to move the magic core!" He screamed in terror. There's no way you could have become a witch after what happened. Seeing him lose his composure, Sunan's mood lightened. A small smile appeared. "Oh, are you talking about that restriction spell?" he said. Actually, breaking it was pretty easy. The manager froze, sweat pouring down his face. He stammered, "What did you do? To understand this, you have to know why the Witches Association was formed and how it maintains its monopoly. The war between the races ended only 30 years ago, and peace is fragile. Out of fear of another war erupting, a decision was made. The most dangerous forms of magic were placed under strict prohibitions. One of these was the restriction placed on failed students. The nation introduced it to prevent the uncontrolled rage of those who failed the witch exam. But for those who managed to break the prohibition, there was no established protocol for how to deal with them." Zunan smiled brightly, asking casually, "I bet there's a rumor going around that you're not supposed to help people under the restriction, right?" He stated calmly, "But there's no law that says you can't break the restriction, or what you can't do after you've broken it, right?" The manager wanted to argue but couldn't. He was screaming internally, "That's because no one has ever broken it before." Then, Sunan's relaxed smile vanished, replaced by a cold, serious expression. "We will be starting an investigation shortly. Right now, all the evidence is pointing in Sunan's favor, a fact he didn't hesitate to point out. I managed to fix the item you swore was beyond repair, so I have the right to investigate, even if you deliberately destroy the evidence. All I have to do is restore it." Every word he spoke sent a chill down the old manager's spine. He couldn't argue back a single word. Desecrating a witch's duty, racial discrimination, and obstructing a public official on duty. And don't forget the fee to cover up your little mistake and protect the witch's precious honor. Sunan smirked, his voice light but sharp as glass. "Looks like you'll be shutting your doors for good." By the time he finished at the Witches Association, the sun had already set, so Sunan just headed straight home. It was only the start of the week, and he was already completely wiped out from running around. He collapsed onto the sofa. He stared blankly at the ceiling, thinking to himself this was officially the worst Monday of his life. Thinking back, it was his first run-in with the Witches Association since becoming a public servant. Luckily, the complaint was handled instantly, but the whole encounter still left a bitter taste in his mouth. Musing on this, Sunan tilted his head and muttered, "I just wish that damn association would get its act together." Sunan couldn't help but wonder if he was wrong for trying to make magic better for everyone. He just wanted a world where people could use it freely. As he was lost in thought, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his team leader. She'd sent a sticker of a mischievous rabbit, teasing him. "Nice work, Sunan. You really reeled in a big one. Wiping the smug looks off those witches' faces must have felt good, huh?" Reading that praise from his boss, he let out a satisfied sigh. "Good job today, Sunan." And just like that, all his frustrations for the day melted away. Sunan put down his phone, muttering that today was a personal victory, and drifted off to sleep with a relieved smile. Maybe, just maybe, this was the best Monday ever. Not bad at all. But that thought was shattered by a mountain of paperwork crashing down. He immediately took that back. Nope, scratch that. Looking at the enormous pile of work, he stuttered, "What is all this?" His boss just smiled brightly and replied, "What do you think? It's all paperwork related to the complaint cases." This sharp-looking woman, a vampire, was Anne's, the team leader for special interspecies complaints. She beamed at him. "It's all thanks to you. I was away on business, so the documents just kept piling up." Son Anne was completely baffled. "Then why is my pile the only one that's a mountain?" As soon as he asked, the office atmosphere went dead silent, mostly because Ans hadn't invented a good excuse yet. He knew better than to expect a real answer from his eccentric boss. So he just gave a knowing smile and greeted his colleague. "Good morning." Chisa, a girl with delicate wings, shyly replied, "Good morning." This gentle beauty also worked in their special complaints department. A fairy. Sunan glanced from her workload back to his own, complaining to Chisa with obvious frustration. "Weren't you also on a business trip yesterday? So why is there such a massive difference in our backlogs?" Seeing his face darken, she knew he was about to explode, which terrified her even more. But his stormy expression had no effect on their carefree team leader. She just grabbed his shoulders with a hearty laugh. "Come on, you know you're our most capable employee, don't you?" She wasn't holding back on the praise either. "Besides, the magic scanner you built has top-of-the-line security. It's worlds better than anything developed by the Witches Association." Seeing Anne's lay it on this thick, Sun Anne knew she was buttering him up for something. "Just spit out what you want." As if on cue, Anne's face lit up as she clasped her hands together, and then she shouted, "I'm leaving it all to you." The moment she said it, his colleagues vanished from the office at light speed. Sun An was utterly exhausted, a helpless smile on his face. He was so wrong to think Monday could ever be okay, but no matter how tired he was, the work still had to get done. Around 2:40, while the office was in its usual workflow, the automatic doors slid open, but no one came through. Or rather, it seemed the visitors this time were just too short to be seen from a normal vantage point. The presence of these tiny guests drew a little attention. A small hand placed a ticket with the number 20 on the desk. Two childish voices piped up from below, catching his attention. "Go on, press the bell." "Right, push it." Sun An looked down to see a pair of impeccably dressed twins confidently stating, "We've been waiting for you." The kids left him stunned for a moment, but thanks to his line of work, he instantly identified their species. Judging by their clothes, they were nobles. Vampire twins, perhaps? He masterfully composed his face into a gentle smile. "Hello, you two," he said softly. "I'm sorry, but number 20 has to be handled at a different counter." The little girl looked like her world had ended. "But why?" she blurted out, and Sun An began to explain politely. "Because there are other people waiting in line," he explained. The twins looked at each other, flustered. "But we only want to talk to you," the girl insisted. He remained completely unfazed and offered a suggestion. "Well, I think you should ask the people behind you if they'd be willing to trade places." Seeing a glimmer of hope, the girl agreed. "Okay, just wait there," the little boy said frantically. "Sir, miss, please come back." After a bit of effort, the two kids managed to swap their number to 21. Sun An looked at the two small children and asked, "So, what kind of consultation do you two need from me today?" The boy twin gazed at his sister with pure admiration. She was so cool. The girl then stepped forward, explaining their urgent purpose. "We need someone who can appraise our magical tool. This is a very, very important matter." Hearing this, Sun An's face hardened. He couldn't help but wonder, isn't that the Wizards Association's job? The little girl just shook her head silently. With a serious look, the twins admitted they still didn't believe wizards were real. At the little vampire girl's confession, Sun An's expression darkened. She refused to believe in them, period. He pushed his hair back, revealing a red earring. "Just so you know," he stated, "I'm a wizard, too." The twins jumped, completely and utterly shocked. "You're a wizard, too?" The girl quickly recovered from her shock and started explaining everything in a rush. "But when we saw you at the association's branch, you didn't seem like the others. Even the manager had to bow down to you, right?" The two kids excitedly recounted the entire scene. "We saw the manager practically scraping the floor for you. And with hair that unique, you're impossible to miss from a distance." Sun An pouted, finally understanding why they sought him out. So they just wanted his help, because he had pulled over other people. Sun An fiddled with his hair, looking calm. "Seems like that's the only reason. It is hard not to stand out, I guess. Thanks to a magical side effect from Lino, his hair couldn't be dyed." The girl pressed on. "So if you're a wizard, you can appraise magic tools, right?" Sun An calmly affirmed. "Of course I can appraise it." But then he casually dropped the bombshell. "Unfortunately, I can't do it for you." The little vampire girl looked like she was about to cry, but why not? Sunan patiently explained it was because he wasn't an association wizard, he was a civil servant. Wizards who belong to the association can use magic outside of their official duties, but civil servants like us are forbidden from using magic for anything other than resolving official public complaints and disputes. He held up a rulebook to make his point, adding, "And on top of that, we don't handle personal problems." The note on the page was written by the team leader himself, stating clearly, "No personal consultation services provided." But the little vampire girl wasn't giving up. She asked, "So, what if other people are involved in the problem?" Sunan spoke seriously. "More specifically, we need concrete proof that the situation is deeply rooted or has been going on for many days." To make sure the kids understood the limits of his job, Sunan patiently explained it all in detail. For example, if it's a one-time insult, my recommendation would be to report it to the police. But if that same thing keeps happening for days after, that's when I can take action. See the difference? Basically, if someone insults you on day 1 by calling you a stupid vampire, there's nothing he can do. But if they repeat that exact same insult on day 2, Sunan has every right to show up and haul them away. "A good day to you. I'm from the Special Complaints Resolution Department." After that explanation, it all clicked for the girl. Her strategy changed. "Yes, I understand. I think I get it. In that case, I'll file a different kind of complaint." Her expression was dead serious as she made her accusation. "I'm super rich, so those wizards are forcing me to buy things I don't need. This has been happening for over 3 months. The vampire boy immediately chimed in to confirm, his voice thick with frustration. "Yes, she's telling the truth. It's been happening for 3 months. Sun An couldn't believe someone would be shameless enough to scam little kids out of their money. Wizards made her buy these items? They're pulling this on children?" The kids continued to lay out the details of the serious fraud. They said since I was just a kid, I couldn't possibly understand their complicated words, and that if I bought their items, I'd become a great vampire in the future. So I bought everything, because I want to be a great vampire. Even so, Sunan still couldn't officially step in. He gently told them, it would be better to go to the proper authorities. Unfortunately, the kids simply replied, "We already did that." The vampire girl looked helpless, but they wouldn't take us seriously just because we're kids. The boy looked at him, pleading, "You're the first person who has listened to us for this long." And through it all, these kids were incredibly well-behaved and mature. The boy sighed heavily. "Besides, our grandfather is extremely busy, so we didn't want to bother him with this." Desperate with their situation, the kids had even started to blame their own status. After all, we're members of the vampire aristocracy. This was the last straw for Sunan. He couldn't just stand by and let these kids lose their faith in adults, so he finally spoke up. Their intentions were good, sure, but he had to set them straight. Their thinking was all wrong. Kids, no matter their background, deserve protection and the right to depend on others. It's not a child's job to worry about the busy lives of adults. And just like that, he produced 2 lollipops for the little ones. "All right, I'll take charge of your complaint," he said, his smile both gentle and confident. "Can you tell me everything that happened?" Seeing they had an ally, the kids spilled everything. They explained that strange things started happening after they brought the magic items home. The stranger had apparently even followed them. They were also getting texts from an unknown number. Now, even at school, everyone was looking at them differently. So what they needed to know was simple. Were there any listening devices in the magical items? Things were getting more and more serious. The young vampire boy held out a piece of paper. "I found this in my locker today." The note was soaked in blood-red ink, filled with malicious words. "You blood-sucking monsters. Does human blood taste good? Maybe you'll spit out gold if you drink our blood." After hearing their story, Sunan headed straight for their home. Unlike his last job, this time he caught a ride with his clients, using the trip to sort through his thoughts. Vampires really were the wealthiest race, having multiplied their fortunes after the war and only gotten richer since. Sunan couldn't help but feel a surge of anger. Targeting kids was a low blow, even for his line of work. This had gone too far. Were they stalking these kids just because they were rich? The little vampire boy, however, was already back in high spirits. "We're here, Sunan. This is our house." At that innocent voice, he looked up and was met with the sight of a ridiculously huge mansion. He'd prepared himself for the vampire's wealth, but it was still hard not to be stunned. He thought the pickup car was fancy, but he never dreamed something like this was just the normal standard for vampires. But the awe lasted only a second. His eyes narrowed with caution as a very bad feeling washed over him. This extravagant mansion instantly reminded him of his past life as a lonely boy, enduring insults in a wide, empty hallway. "You are a disgrace to the family." The short flashback darkened his expression. Noticing his change in mood, the little vampire girl asked with concern, "Sunan, are you okay? Are you carsick?" Not wanting to worry the kids, Sun-an pinched his brow and explained, "I'm fine, just a little surprised by such a nice car. Seriously, I was thinking a car like this probably costs as much as a house." The little vampire boy beamed at his words. "If you like it, we'll give you one. We have plenty of cars, you know." Sun-an nearly agreed before he could stop himself. Deeply touched, he held back his tears and said, "No, it's okay. I appreciate the offer though. Let's go inside. You two lead the way." After they entered a private room, the kids gathered all the items they'd been tricked into buying. Good lord. They were loaded. Sun-an stared at the mountain of toys at his feet, absolutely speechless. The older sister coughed awkwardly, a bit embarrassed. "I gathered all the magic items we've ever bought, to be safe. But seeing it all like this, I realize we might have bought a little too much." He let out a soft sigh, adjusting his glasses before getting to work. "First, I'll check if there are any listening devices among these. I'm going to use magic, so don't be alarmed." The kids cheered him on happily. "Okay. Good luck, Sunan." With their permission, he pointed his hand toward the pile and began to chant. A magic circle materialized. In a flash, the room filled with countless magic circles of every color and shape imaginable. The magical light glittered like a private galaxy, leaving the kids totally mesmerized as the older sister stared. Her little brother was even more impressed, gasping in constant admiration. "He's so cool, it looks like stars," his sister silently wondered. "Is this really the same kind of magic that I know?" But the one who created this magnificent scene wasn't paying attention to it at all, remaining completely focused. His crimson eyes looked cold and distant as he mentally recited the keyword for his search. Listening device. The spell immediately reacted, highlighting a rather cute brown teddy bear. He used his magic to float the bear into his hand, but that wasn't all. The magic continued its search. Sunan followed its path and saw it fly toward a sticker on the door. Curious, he touched it. "Who put this cat sticker here?" The girl quickly came over and said, "Our maid did." She seemed quite nervous as she stammered, "Do you like cats?" Just then, his eyes narrowed with intense seriousness. The little vampire girl saw his expression change, and her own smile stiffened. "But why are you asking about a sticker? Unless?" Sunan didn't hide anything and stated his suspicion outright. After checking, he'd confirmed it. Both the teddy bear and the sticker had listening devices. He laid out a harsh possibility that the so-called sorcerer and their maid were likely working together. But this theory was met with immediate, frantic denial. The kids shouted in unison, "No way. That's impossible." The older sister, however, quickly accepted it with a sad, knowing smile. Her eyes filled with a quiet resignation. "Someone in our own house betrayed us." Sun-an silently patted the girl's head, offering what comfort he could. All he could do now was catch the culprit. Sun-an's voice softened. "All right, to move forward, I need approval from the owner of this mansion." "Your grandfather," he asked. "Is there any way you can call him?" The girl, feeling a bit better, gave a small nod. Seeing her spirits lift, he offered a gentle smile. That would be a huge help. With a plan in motion, he cast a tracking spell. "Time to go catch our suspect, don't you think?" The tracking spell spread out, covering the entirety of the vast, deceptively peaceful villa. At that exact moment, in a hidden corner of the estate, a woman's frustrated voice could be heard complaining. "I'm telling you, we've done more than enough, haven't we? How much further do we need to push this?" She was on the phone, tucked away, when she heard footsteps getting closer. "I don't want to get the kids involved any more than they already are." The woman whipped around, startled, finding Sun, and casually standing there. "Hello." Before she could even speak, he flashed his official ID card. "I'm from the Special Multi-Species Complaint Resolution Department," he stated calmly. Division 1, to be exact. A mysterious, all-business smile played on his lips as he made his request. "We're going to need your cooperation." Hearing his demand, the maid became incredibly tense, stammering, "What? Cooperation? What are you even talking about?" Sunan didn't waste a second. He pulled out a small kitten sticker. "I heard you pretty clearly. You already know exactly why I'm here. You're the one who planted this sticker, aren't you?" The maid instinctively recoiled, her entire body on high alert. "No, it wasn't me. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never even seen that thing before." But whether the maid confessed or not didn't really matter. He already had his answer. "We also know you have an accomplice," he continued. "So why'd you plant the listening device?" The gig was up, and the maid's entire tone shifted. Dark scales began to creep across her face. "A listening device? I don't know what you're talking about." Her smile twisted into a sneer as a dark aura erupted around her. "I'm not in a great mood today. I haven't eaten anything all morning. It turns out the maid belongs to the snake clan, a species known to become extremely aggressive and violent when hungry. If you're a civil servant, or even just a human, you should know what this means, right? She hissed. Sun-an just smiled back, completely unfazed. Of course, I do. She wanted to use the rules to threaten him? Fine. He'd use them right back at her. Then by all means, have something to eat. Doesn't the Special Species Act state that members of the snake clan must carry emergency rations for this very reason? The maid gritted her teeth, trying to find an excuse. How am I supposed to eat in front of a stranger? Just as she was about to argue further, the young vampire boy arrived. Please, Gina, just eat something. Seeing the young master on the verge of tears, her voice trembled. Young master. The boy walked closer, his own voice choked with emotion. I heard everything, he said, heartbroken. Was it really you who put the listening device in our room? The painful image of his sister's face was still fresh in his mind. All of these terrible things happening to us. That note in the closet that made my sister so sad. He took Gina's hand, tears streaming down his cheeks. You don't have to keep doing these awful things. Please, just stop. He looked at her with a sliver of hope. I know you don't really want to hurt us, right? As he spoke, the scales on Gina's face began to disappear. She was on the verge of confessing, tears welling in her own eyes. Young master. But just then, something else attacked. Sun-an was already moving. He threw his hand up, instantly chanting a defensive spell. A magical barrier erupted in a flash, shielding all three of them from the sudden, vicious assault. Gina instinctively pulled the boy into a tight, protective hug, asking in a panicked voice, "What was that?" Sun-an's tone was grim. Take care of Lowen. In the next instant, he mentally launched a counterspell, sending a volley of magical arrows flying out to find their target. He then dropped to one knee, casting a wind spell to chase the culprit. In the blink of an eye, he vanished, leaving the two behind the barrier as the boy cried out, Sun-an! He was already outside the luxurious mansion's grounds in a matter of seconds. Landing high up on a tree branch, he scanned the area until his eyes locked onto a cloaked figure, running for their life. With a single leap, he landed directly in the suspect's path, startling them and forcing them to a screeching halt. Sun-an looked up, questioning the man. Are you one of Gina's accomplices? The suspect appeared to be somewhere in his 20s or 30s. The man rummaged through his coat pocket, declaring, I don't know anything. Then he screamed, throwing a bomb right towards Sun-an. Here you go. He calmly raises his fist, chanting a spell internally to contain and block it. Silk ribbons appear from thin air, wrapping tightly around the bomb as chains erupt from nothing, startling the suspect. What the hell is this? Chains? He screams in terror. You don't have a magic circle. How are you using magic? Junan just smirks. That's the unique thing about my magic. Taking the rare chance to show off, Shunan elaborates. My special magic doesn't need circles, or even incantations. Though, he admits proudly, plenty of mages use this type of magic now. By then, the suspect is already bound tight. Just when it seemed like the guy had given up, he starts to transform. He morphs into a giant husky, lunging at Sunan with claws extended. But with a simple wave from Sunan, the chains strike even harder, slamming the massive beast to the ground. Zunan lets out a soft, relaxed laugh. When we continuously face threats on duty, we have every right to respond with force. He steps closer to the suspect. And since the target is a werewolf, this level of violence is perfectly acceptable. The werewolf struggles, screaming, Let me go! Unfazed, Sunan reaches out to touch him, saying, Excuse me for a moment. The moment his magic activates, the werewolf is knocked unconscious. With the suspect neutralized, Sunan dusts off his hands. The best way to down a werewolf is to disrupt their internal mana. Just when the job seemed over, Sunan frowns at what the guy threw. It's not done. Things just got a lot more complicated. Clearly, the object the werewolf tossed still needs to be dealt with. After the incident, he hands the suspect to the police and heads back inside. I've captured a bomber from the werewolf tribe. The police have already taken him away. Once he regains consciousness, they'll begin their investigation. Zun-an then approaches the maid, Gina, now tied to a chair, to start their chat. However, something is strange about the culprit's condition. He begins his analysis. At first, I chased him thinking he was your accomplice, but it turns out he was hypnotized. Zunan's eyes turn back to gold, his expression cold and unreadable. My theory is that a hypnotist orchestrated this entire affair. He questions Gina, but she presses her lips together, refusing to say a single word. Could the real accomplice be from the Inubu clan? Mentioning that notorious name naturally brings their infamous charm magic to mind. It's an exclusive ability of the Inubu clan, allowing them to completely manipulate the will of other people. Because this power is incredibly dangerous, the government strictly regulates the Inubu clan's level of charm magic. On top of that, during the Great Multiracial War, the Inubu clan was ultimately subjugated by the vampires. Even now, in an era of fairness, many in the Inubu clan still harbor deep resentment. After a long silence, Gina finally speaks. My accomplice is a witch. Sunan's guess was totally wrong as an image of the dangerous figure appears in Gina's mind. He raises an eyebrow. You mean the mage who sold those magical items to the two kids? Gina replies heavily, yes. She can't bring herself to look up, her voice filled with sadness as she talks. I never saw their face clearly, so I don't know their race. But that mage is the one who caused all of this trouble. Gina's memories suddenly come flooding back to a time when a mysterious person approached her on the street. Because of my intimidating appearance, I kept getting fired. But then the mage showed up, offering to find me a job if I just followed their orders. Hearing this, Sunan realizes they must have targeted her from the very beginning. But if they aren't from the Inubu clan, then what could their actual objective be? He recalls the evidence, piecing together clues from the note that was left behind. It seems they were having money problems with the twins' grandfather. You blood-sucking monsters. Does other people's blood taste good? Did gold pour out when you drank our blood? Sunan politely cuts in. So, can you tell me who this mage is? Gina nods, ready to cooperate. Of course. I'll tell you everything I know. She bows her head as tears fall, her voice filled with guilt. They did horrible things to those children, but I truly hope they don't have to suffer anymore. Seeing her genuine remorse, Sunan softens his tone, offering a mix of strictness and comfort. I understand you were in a difficult situation, but that doesn't change the mistakes that you've made. He gently advises her. So you need to make sure you face the consequences of your own actions first. Gina's face is numb. And after that, come find me. I'll help you file a formal complaint. His words touch her soul, and the tears begin to fall like rain. Overcome with emotion, Gina simply says, thank you. As twilight fell on the Jello slums, Sunan followed a magic trail right to its source. Before moving in, he gave his boss a heads up. I'm here. Team leader Roth replied with a warning. Be careful. Devon has a reputation for being a lawless place. Roth was also in the middle of his own operation elsewhere. The hypnotized criminal had been sent for evaluation at MT Hospital downtown. I'll signal you the moment they move in, Roth promised. But his voice was still laced with concern. If things get dangerous, call the police immediately. Take care of yourself. After the warning, Sunan hung up. Sunan stared ahead, pushing his hair back with a look of pure boredom. He held a teddy bear glowing with a faint blue aura. From it, a magical trail of light shot straight toward the culprit's hiding place. He smirked, let's see who the real culprit is. Ever polite, Sun An took off his shoes before entering the house. A man sat inside as if he'd been waiting. You're here, he said casually. Sun An hesitated. Could this be his target? Keeping his cool, he introduced himself. Hello, I'm He Sun An from the Special Species Complaint Resolution Department. This was the witch who had been tormenting the twins. The suspicious man was covered by a heavy cloak. Only his hands and a smiling half-face were visible. It's nice to meet someone with such spirit. His deep voice was completely calm. I know why you're here. So please, sit down. Sun An's eyes scanned the room, running a quick mental analysis of the entire scene. 14 items were reacting to mana, all with the same signature he'd made them all. This meant he was a pretty skilled witch. Sun An accepted the offer, sitting down as he asked, You know the reason I came here? The man gave a mysterious smile, his tone smugly confident. More than that. I knew you would find your way to this place. Finding this place was no challenge for you. From beneath the hood, sharp, cold pupils like a cat's gleamed. His brow furrowed. You must be curious about who I am. And with that, he pulled back his hood, revealing his true face. Sun An was floored when he saw the man's true form. He couldn't believe it, a single thought screaming in his mind. A vampire. The man looked like a dignified, middle-aged gentleman, his expression unreadable as sun. And sized him up. But even so, the most shocking thing was his appearance. Vampires don't get old, at least. They're not supposed to look like this. Why in the world did he look this way? The vampire witch read the question on his face and spoke first. It seems my appearance startled you. Vampires age much slower than their years, correct? He then added casually, by the way, have you heard the rumors? There's a superstition that vampires get younger and stronger by drinking the blood of their own kind. Sun An's shock deepened. If that was true, this vampire witch was just casually admitting everything. Yes, your guess is correct. I am the vampire being hunted and bled dry by my own people. His voice dropped. The reason is obvious. It's all because I chose to become a witch." The vampire revealed the deep truth without any hesitation. As you know, vampires blame the witches for their defeat in the war so many years ago. So even in these peaceful times, some of them still hold a deep grudge against witches. But that didn't fully explain his condition. After all, there are other vampires who are also witches. The vampire witch replied, "That's because they're only half vampires. The purebloods don't consider them part of the clan." He continued his explanation. "The difference is that I became a witch while being a pureblood vampire. I became a lowly outcast, a stain on my family line. Just like you." Those words made Sunan's pupils shrink as his face hardened. It seemed the old man was working with bad information. His voice turned sharp. "What is that supposed to mean?" The vampire witch then revealed, "I've known of your existence for some time, He Sunan. Ever since you first appeared at the Witch Association, I recognized your magic as something revolutionary." He continued to ramble. "It made me pray with all my heart that I wouldn't share your fate, the tragedy of being an unrecognized witch." Sunan had no intention of listening to any more rambling and stood up abruptly. "You're avoiding the main topic." He narrowed his eyes, accusing him directly. "You planted a listening device to threaten those children. Whatever your reasons, you used other people for your own personal gain. Not to mention you put 2 kids' lives in danger." But the vampire witch seemed totally unconcerned, even speaking casually. "I even went to the police to report it, but with no evidence, they couldn't make any progress." Tired of the constant excuses, Sunan cut him off impatiently. "It seems you have no intention of listening to me, do you?" Whatever twisted reasons he had, the proof was undeniable. He was caught. But the vampire wizard acted like he couldn't hear a single word of it. He just stirred his cocoa, muttering excuses about the Wizards Association turning on him. But the more he talked, the more irritated Sunan became. Sun-An cut him off, his voice sharp. Enough with the excuses. Losing his patience, he delivered the ultimatum. "I'm going to compare your mana to the cursed item. I expect your full cooperation." At these words, the vampire wizard just chuckled, like they were old friends catching up. His voice filled with a strange kind of regret, his expression serene. "If only there was someone like you back then." The moment the words left his lips, and here's where it gets wild, a red magic circle flared to life on the cup. Sunan was caught completely off guard. Wait a second, that's a bomb. Suddenly, all the cursed items in the room began to float menacingly above the wizard's head. It seems this was his plan all along. As the artifacts prepared to self-destruct, he looked almost peaceful. A solid plan. But he made one fatal mistake. He was facing Sunan. He wasn't about to let that happen, unleashing his own spell. A magic circle blazed to life. As he finished the incantation, colorful rings of power filled the room. His eyes glowing a cold, crimson red, Sunan stretched out his hand and gave a single command. "Dispel." His magic shot out like arrows, shattering the wizard's spells instantly. And just like that, the wizard's calm, collected demeanor shattered, replaced with pure, undiluted shock. 1,000 questions raced through the old man's mind, but only one escaped his lips. "What in the world are you?" With the threat neutralized, Sunan followed protocol and called the police, watching as they arrived to haul the wizard away. After dealing with that creep, his mood finally started to improve a bit. Before being taken away, the wizard revealed his motive. "All I wanted was to stir the pot." A grand, chaotic scheme was already playing out in his head. He had been plotting for ages, trying to ignite a conflict between the upper and lower classes. "My goal was to turn them against each other." As they led him away, he looked back at Sunan with a cryptic smile, as if this was only the beginning. "The internal conflicts in this country are endless," he warned. "I just hope you don't become their next target." These words, sounding way too much like a final prophecy, just gave Sunan a splitting headache. He knew what this meant: more trouble was on the horizon. Were there really others out there trying to tear society apart? Sunan couldn't help but wonder about his rotten luck. Why did he always run into the psychos who wanted to watch the world burn? Just then, his phone buzzed, cutting through his thoughts. It was a text from his less-than-reliable vampire team leader. She laid the praise on thick. "Amazing work, Sunan. You absolutely nailed another mission." To reward her most efficient agent, she offered a little perk, a small gift to recognize all his hard work. Sunan was baffled. A gift? On the screen was a photo of a plate of crispy fried chicken, French fries, and a 1.5-liter Coke. Realizing food was waiting, he rubbed his forehead, muttering, "So, I'm going home to eat chicken? Nice." That perfectly timed care package was enough to lift his spirits, letting him push the day's insanity to the back of his mind. And so, the night passed peacefully. The next morning, it was back to the office as usual. It was a beautiful sunny day. Too bad Sunan felt like absolute garbage. his stomach churning and growling non-stop. He started getting suspicious of last night's chicken, looking completely fed up. Something's not right. Why does my stomach hurt this much? Was that chicken bad? With a perfectly good reason, he told Ross, I need to use a sick day and go to the hospital. Before he could finish, she shot him down flat. Absolutely not. Sun An was completely baffled. Wait, team leader, why not? You said if I was sick I could use my annual leave. Ross said of course, but only for unbearable pain. Right now, she teased. It just looks like you're trying to get a day off. Hitting Sun An's barely there conscience. Having said that, she approved his request to go home, giving him a playful wink. So don't spend the whole day at the hospital. Just go home, get some rest, and come back. You don't need to take a half day. After a quick handover, Ross just turned and chirped, All right, I'm heading out, leaving Sun. And fuming but unable to argue. So much for getting a day off. He sighed and went back to finish up his work. She's too sharp, he thought. Guess I'll go to the hospital after work. But get this, a group of men suddenly stomped towards his desk like a gang of debt collectors. A deep, gravelly voice cut through the office noise. You Sunan? The whole scene caught him by surprise. He immediately assumed they were there to start a fight. The man in the middle, flanked by two huge bodyguards, looked like a mob boss as he said coldly, Could I have a moment of your time? The man sat down, his tone incredibly serious. Sun An found himself immediately drawn into the tense atmosphere, listening intently. But the actual complaint left Sun An completely speechless. The opening was just like with those young vampires the other day, easily fooled by a simple wizard. That's because Sun An is a vampire himself. People always tried to overcharge them, assuming all vampires are ridiculously wealthy. But he wasn't like those novices who didn't understand the system. He got straight to the point. Would this be considered a case of racial discrimination? He then fell silent, awaiting the answer. Sun An calmly replied, Sir, showing up everywhere with bodyguards is bound to cause some misunderstandings. However, he continued, if they charged a higher price just because you're a vampire, then yes, that is absolutely discrimination. But can we prove that's the only reason? In cases like this, we need to verify everything, and solid proof is best. Hearing this, the old vampire's tone sharpened. Are you saying this department only helps those with concrete evidence? Then he challenged him. If that's the case, why did my own niece and nephew receive your help? And at that moment, it all started to click for Sun An. Niece and nephew. His mind flashed back to the two little vampires, remembering how they said no one ever took them seriously. You're the first person who's ever listened to us for this long. He remembered the little girl's sadly mature face, and how they didn't want to bother their very busy grandfather with the problem. Sun An was stunned. This man, he was the twins' grandfather? The old vampire just pursed his lips, frowning as he waited for an answer. Seeing no reply, the man's patience wore thin. He narrowed his eyes dangerously. So, what was the reason? Because they were children, Sun An replied automatically, then corrected himself. Well, that wasn't the entire reason, he explained seriously. The children's distress was clearly genuine, and they provided enough evidence to prove the incident was real. Still not satisfied, the old vampire pushed back. And what if that evidence was just a childish prank? Sun An didn't get angry. He simply replied in a soft voice, If so, I would have been incredibly relieved. The old vampire never expected an answer like that. His eyebrows shot up in complete surprise. Ignoring his shock, Sun An spoke from the heart. Isn't it a good thing if it means the children never actually had to suffer? Our response would have been the same, even if it wasn't real. Speaking as one adult to another, he was completely serious. As their guardian, I sincerely hope you will look after them. I know it sounds presumptuous since we just met, but I believe you need to re-examine their environment at home, especially when they feel more comfortable asking a stranger for help. As he listened, the old vampire's expression softened into a slight smile. He immediately took full responsibility. You're right. That's shameful of me. I've been so busy, I was completely blind to what was happening. I'll take your words to heart, he said, his voice deep and honest. I may seem like a cold person, but those two grandchildren mean the entire world to me. They were so happy when they spoke about you. As a grateful grandfather, he bowed his head. For that, I truly thank you. With that, he held out a letter and a business card. This is a letter from my grandchildren. Sun An took them, a rare look of confusion on his face. A business card was included too? Dentier. I've never seen this name before. The man, Dentier, slipped back into full CEO mode. If you ever need help, call me. The Dentier family always repays its debts. With those final words, he left just as smoothly as he had arrived. After Dentier was gone, Sun An opened the letter. The childish handwriting and innocent drawings seemed to light up his entire day. It said, "We're so happy and so grateful. Please come play with us again when you get the chance. Let's eat yummy food together. Hello, Mr. Sunan. You promised you'd play with us again. And thank you. We are so very grateful." Reading their adorable words brought a genuine warmth to Sunan's heart. A colleague noticed his rare, cheerful mood. "Well, you look pretty motivated today, huh?" The moment he felt that motivation, the complaints came flooding in. He ended up handling 60 cases all by himself, utterly drained, both mentally and physically. Sunan still put on a polite smile for the next client. "Hello, how can I help you?" The new arrival was a distinguished-looking, middle-aged man. He was a mysterious figure in an elegant suit, but the head he was carrying spoke first. "I was just passing the hospital nearby, completely used to this sort of thing." Sunan just smiled and repeated, "You were passing the hospital nearby, you say?" Sunan waited for more, but the man seemed troubled. Then, the mysterious man looked at him with sincere eyes and began his strange tale. Junan's heart hammered against his ribs, his mind completely blank for a moment. He'd been exhausted all day, leaving his temper on a hair trigger. He flashed a dark smile, looking ready to devour the man sitting across from him. Trying to hold it in, he took a deep breath. "Look, I suggest you either go back to the hospital, or you've stumbled into love." The mysterious man finally realized how misleading he sounded and scrambled to explain himself. No way. Not at his age. Overcome with a wave of embarrassment, his gaze shifted away as he offered his own theory. "I have this feeling, I'm wondering if this whole situation was caused by the succubus clan at the hospital. It feels exactly like the charm power I've experienced before." Hearing that, Sunan's expression immediately hardened. If that's true, this is seriously dangerous. Still, a part of him was skeptical. However, the charm power wielded by the succubus clan is under extremely strict control. It shouldn't be leaking outside the building. The mysterious man felt the same way. "I thought so too, and I was about to report it. But I'm sure this isn't my imagination," he confided worriedly. "That's why I came to the Special Complaints Department to get this verified. Because the last thing I want is for the succubus clan to be discriminated against over this." Listening to his sincere words, Shunan shared his concern. "He's got a point. If we report this, the police will investigate them regardless." He asked directly, "So where is this hospital?" The man replied, "It's right nearby. I think it's called Mentosur Hospital." The name instantly made Shunan connect this case to the complaint from those two vampire sisters. The hypnotized criminal was taken for an evaluation at Mentosur Hospital. "When they go in, I'll notify you immediately. Don't worry." He thought to himself, "It's probably just a coincidence, right?" Sunan handed the man a form as per procedure. "In that case, please fill out this complaint form." Following his instructions, the mysterious man began filling out the citizen complaint. After he finished the form, the mysterious man quietly called his name, Mr. Shunan. He offered a kind smile, his voice low and warm. "I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen to my story." Encouraged by his words, Sunan replied humbly, "Not at all. I should be the one thanking you." The man chuckled. "Looks like your superior is calling you." Zunan was about to ask what he meant when Ross's voice boomed from across the room, "Zunan." He'd thought the man was just joking. Hearing his name, he turned to look, calling out in confusion, "Team leader?" But when he turned back, the mysterious visitor was gone. But the reception desk has a soundproof barrier. It was unclear how long he'd been gone, or how he'd left so quietly. He shook his head, trying to dispel the strange feeling. Ross arrived at his desk and asked, "Sunan, you were planning to go to the hospital later, right?" She held up the new form from his desk, her face beaming with excitement. "Fantastic. I have a few things I need you to handle. There's another complaint about Mentosur Hospital, something to do with a powerful charm." Ross noted, "We seem to have gotten a lot of these cases lately." Her words only added weight to the man's story. He worried, "Does that mean the charm is really leaking outside?" But not wanting overtime, he tried to pass on the task. Lai, Jiang, and Tessa are already scheduled to go there. Ross shot back immediately, "But you're the only one who's immune to hypnosis." She had him cornered. He couldn't really argue with that logic. "I suppose you could say that." Ross didn't hesitate to push the work onto him. "Then, why don't you check it out while you're there?" She also didn't forget to add, "And remember to submit your prescription and ID." Shunan sighed in defeat. "Do I really have to?" Ross let out a sharp breath, her expression turning dead serious as she gave the order. "Of course you do. You know I worry about you, right?" The following morning, Sunan arrived at Mentosur Hospital to investigate the incident. The lobby was packed with people. At first glance, it seemed like a normal hospital, but if you looked closely, everyone seemed a bit dazed, their eyes spinning. From visitors to patients waiting for their appointments, everyone was stumbling around, making the nurses' jobs nearly impossible. "Please, sir, just try to relax your arm." Junan was one of the few people unaffected. It only took him a moment to realize the situation inside the hospital was even worse. "First, I need to use the meter to check the level of this charm." He pulled out his specialized detection tool to get a reading. The screen displayed the number 49. Junan stared in disbelief. "What? 49? The effect was clearly way past the legal limit, so why was it only reading 49? In his confusion, a machine that looked like an air purifier caught his attention. What in the world is happening here? Sunan walked closer to the cylindrical machine with its distinct swirling mesh surface. He cast a simple trace spell, and the analysis appeared in an instant. 1. A magic that evaluates air quality. 2. A magic that automatically purifies the air based on the first spell's results. And 3. It gathers all pollutants into a single mass. His golden bronze eyes faded into a deep crimson. Sunan observed the device, impressed. At a glance, it looked like any other ordinary air purifier, but as he squinted, he spotted a faint pink magic circle standing out among all the blue ones. The spell's rating was a 2.1. It was designed to interfere with measurement devices, and it was hiding a second enchantment. Sunan scanned the area, thinking to himself that illegally modifying a magical item for malicious use was a serious crime. Still, whoever dared to pull this off had some serious guts. He then found a hospital employee to ask some questions. "Hello, I'm from the Special Interspecies Complaint Department." To make the investigation go smoothly, he flashed his official ID and asked, "May I have a word with the hospital director?" A few minutes later, Sunan was shown into a guest office. A poster on the wall advertised Tisha masks with the slogan, "Perfect protection, plus dust blocking, plus a mana blocking effect." Tisha masks were made from material E. His eyes were unconsciously drawn to the last line on the poster. Tisha masks. Material E. He was sipping some tea when it suddenly hit him. Wait a minute. The masks are called Tisha? Sunan finally connected the Tisha from the vampire household to the Tisha on the poster, and it took him a second to process. Tisha was a massive corporation, famous for magic masks and cosmetics. Could the man in black and those two kids be connected? Seeing Sunan sitting there silently, lost in thought, the hospital director hesitantly spoke up. "Excuse me, Mr. Sunan." With a hint of caution, the director carefully asked, "Are you here because of that charm level?" Sunan almost choked but played it cool. "Yes, that's right. However, our readings show it isn't exceeding the control threshold." He calmly pointed out that despite this, many patients both inside and outside the hospital were still being affected by the charm. Hearing this, the director's expression turned serious. Seeing he had his full attention, Sunan continued, "So I investigated the true source. Turns out, the air purifier had a charm on it that was interfering with the measuring equipment. The moment the director heard his equipment was compromised, he began explaining frantically. It was obvious from his reaction he knew nothing. "That's impossible. We'd never do that. All of our magical items are inspected by the Witches Association." Fearing he wasn't believed, the director's explanation became more and more frantic. "We even had the police voluntarily measure the charm levels." Sunan, not blaming the hospital, stated coolly, "The culprit will be exposed by the security cameras." He then made his demand, "So please hand over the footage and provide the current locations of all succubus staff and patients. I'll verify it myself." But unexpectedly, the hospital director didn't immediately agree to his request. "But you can't just suddenly demand their personal information like this," he said worriedly. Sunan recited the rules without a hint of emotion. "The complaint department has the right to investigate, and all residents must cooperate." He looked the director dead in the eye. "That is what the government declared when our department was established. I am not asking for the personal information of the doctors or patients." Each word he spoke was like cold steel, giving the director no room to argue. "I need their locations to resolve this issue quickly. Please cooperate before things get worse." After that final warning, the director had no choice but to fully comply. With the info in hand, he left the office. Sunan grabbed his toolkit and immediately got to work. All right, he had a general location. Time to meet the source. His fingers silently worked a spell on a small piece of paper. Blue magical energy poured into the paper, some of it even taking the form of butterflies as it began to fold itself. For a moment, it looked like a worthless crumpled ball, before transforming into a cute paper dog with clear brown eyes. The second it was created, the paper dog was put to work, its 4 paws sticking to the ceiling as it moved. Sunan smiled gently and gave the order. "Time to work." He whispered the command, "Track charm." The puppy's brown eyes began to sparkle like stars. The magic from the spell formed into shimmering star trails, leading the way. Of course, this glowing path was only visible to Sun An. He focused, his lips pursed in concentration. Okay. He linked the familiar's vision to his phone. Now he just had to find the succubus emitting the charm. With the spell cast, he trusted the paper puppy. I'm counting on you. It shot off like a rocket across the ceiling, perfectly dodging the people who were under the charm's spell. His phone screen looked like a chessboard, displaying two types of pieces on the map, blue and red. Sunan scanned the feed with intense focus. Not this person. Not that one either. It raced across the hospital ceilings without stopping, until it found a person in a white coat with two ram horns on their head. Sunan's eyes widened in excitement. Found them. He immediately rushed to the source of the charm, located on the 3rd floor. At that very moment, a doctor running down the hall suddenly froze in his tracks. A nurse saw him stop and asked, "Is something wrong, doctor?" The doctor pointed to something clinging to the ceiling. "No, up there. Something looks really strange." The nurse curiously followed his gaze. "Up where?" The moment she saw it, the nurse screamed, her face draining of all color as she nearly fainted from pure shock. Absolutely terrified, the nurse stammered out, "What is that thing?" Right then, Sunan arrived, completely out of breath. He gasped out, "Excuse me." Seeing how pale he was, the doctor asked with genuine concern, "Oh my goodness, are you all right? You don't look well." Sunan had clearly underestimated the climb to the 3rd floor, replying, "I'm fine, just a little out of shape. A shame, really. Like a loyal pup that finished its task only to be dismissed without a reward." Sun An gave a quick, "Good job," and then sent the creature away. No time for last words, just a simple goodbye. After catching his breath, Sunan presented his official ID and got back to the task at hand. "Hello. I am Sun An from the Special Species Complaint Department. We've received a complaint about a powerful allure spreading throughout the hospital grounds." His expression was grim as he made a formal request. "Please cooperate with us before this situation gets any worse. Miss Mev." His attention was on her, the dark-skinned, silver-haired doctor with emerald eyes. Mev, from Mentos Hospital, was a succubus. Mev heaved a long, tired sigh. She was completely sick and tired of these inspections. She cast her eyes downward, her voice filled with a tragic, bitter resentment. "I'm sorry, but we have been checked so many times already, yesterday and the day before." Mev hugged herself tightly, asking, "How long must we endure this suspicion? It's a sensitive subject, especially for a succubus." The worse her mood got, the more of her powerful allure she would unconsciously release. As he listened, Sunan's eyes narrowed slightly, making him look almost sleepy. His expression turned deeply philosophical as he answered honestly, "That, I do not know." The air grew heavy with his words, but then he added, "Because this is my first time here." Mev felt a sliver of relief. He seemed to understand her situation, saying with a serious face, "You must be exhausted from the constant inspections." "I get that," he continued, "but as a doctor, I'm surprised you'd be angry about a check performed for the benefit of your patients." His tone became sharp, pressing her. "You know the danger of this allure better than I do, right, Miss Mev?" The question left her completely speechless. But Sun An wasn't there to point fingers. He introduced himself again, making a solemn promise. "I am from the Complaint Resolution Department. I swear I will not trouble you with unnecessary suspicions." Those were the words Mev needed to hear. Her deep blue eyes locked onto his. Sun An gently reached out his hand, his voice serious as he asked, "So, will you talk with me?" Mev nervously wrung her hands, gathering her emotions. A few moments later, she softly replied, "Okay." Mev led him into her office to talk. Once they were seated, she gave a deep 90-degree bow and said, "I am truly sorry." She quickly explained her miserable experience over the last few days. "I have been under so much suspicion lately that I unconsciously became rude. I should have never spoken like that to someone I was meeting for the first time." Sunan understood her feelings perfectly. "It's fine," he said gently. "These kinds of misunderstandings happen all the time. Please, don't worry." With the misunderstanding resolved, Sunan got back to the complaint. The allure has now spread far beyond the hospital. However, our detection equipment is reading nothing beyond the normal threshold. That's why I had to use magic to investigate the cause. Mev was shocked to hear this. "So you're a magic user," she breathed. Sunan met her gaze with his sharp, cold bronze eyes and continued. After tracing the source, he stated it plainly. "I have confirmed that you are the primary cause of this incident." Miss Mev, she could hardly believe it, firing back with total conviction. "What? That's impossible. I use my inhibitor medication every single day." Sun An expected this reaction. Adjusting his glasses, he simply said, let's check your condition. Miss Mev, I'm going to use magic now. Please don't be alarmed. He chanted a single word. Trace. A blue grid appeared behind Mev. Then, scan. A chaotic pulse of magic flared to life within her body. On the blue grid, Mev could see the turbulent magic inside of her. Is this magic? She thought, her mind reeling. He isn't even using a magical tool. Watching the unstable energy flow, Sun An's expression grew much more serious. He pursed his lips for a moment, then asked, Miss Mev, have you recently been near a large group of wizards? Or passed by someone casting a spell? She wasn't entirely sure. I don't think so, she replied. Model, seeing his tense expression, Mev couldn't help but assume the worst. Is there something wrong with my body? Sun An answered directly. I've confirmed your charm's flow. The problem is that your mana flow has changed. He gives her a diagnosis. It seems she's been affected by mana interference. So, what's that? Every race, including humans, possesses a unique amount of mana, and when someone intentionally alters that natural flow, it's called mana interference. This condition can happen naturally, just by absorbing mana from the environment, but it can also be caused by a magical attack or someone slowly manipulating the mana flow, which makes the original source incredibly hard to trace. Zunan realized that in short, it could have multiple causes, making it nearly impossible to pinpoint just one. For now, he could only rely on her memory to narrow down the suspects. Hearing this for the first time, Mever couldn't hide her anxiety. My charm has changed. Is that even possible? Zunan confirmed without hesitation. Yes, it's entirely possible. He then asked, have you noticed anything different in your daily life? Mever had to rack her brain before something finally clicked. Now that you mention it, people have seemed friendlier lately. Her mind was a mess, causing Mever to ramble. But that's normal too. I mean, it's just my race. I tend to attract goodwill easily. He let out a small sigh and decided to just play along. Right, I understand. After reassuring his partner, Shunan got serious again. Either way, someone interfered with your mana, which is why the suppressants can no longer contain your charm. But just as she started to calm down, he dropped another bombshell. In fact, taking the medicine might actually be increasing your charm's power. Mever was utterly horrified. That can't be. Mever's mood today had been a roller coaster that had just plunged straight to the bottom. Thinking of her patients, she blamed herself, muttering, so because of me, everyone. Luckily, Shunan cut in just in time to save her from a mental breakdown. Don't blame yourself. His cool, rational expression and steady voice were surprisingly reassuring. This wasn't your fault, Miss Mever, so try not to overthink it. But Mever still felt guilty. But it's my fault, Sunan interrupted again. I will help you. She was so enraged that her distinctive succubus wings unfurled. Radiating, killing intent, she demanded, who did this? Seeing her true form when she was angry had him sweating bullets. He quickly reported, the culprit should be on the security camera footage. The moment he finished speaking, a massive boulder smashed through the glass window, flying right at Mever. She screamed as magical chains instantly shot out to intercept it. Like agile vines, they wrapped securely around the shattered glass fragments. Trembling in fear like a fawn, Mever stammered, what's happening? Junan's brow furrowed, but a grim smile spread across his face. Found him. Our suspect. He then rushed to leave. I'll come back later to check on your mana. She watched Sunan, growing more frantic. Wait a minute, that way is. Before Mever could finish, he was already crouched on the windowsill. She was absolutely panicking now. Mever screamed in horror, this is the 3rd floor. But Sunan leaped out anyway. He cast a spell on himself to absorb the impact, allowing him to land gently without a single injury. After the successful jump, Sunan casually brushed his hair from his eyes. A cynical smirk appeared as he muttered, throwing rocks from that far. This case is getting interesting. He used magic to enhance his vision, locking onto the culprit's figure. From the initial look, the guy was some kind of reptile. He zoomed in on the tail. Based on the tail's features, Sunan confirmed it. A lizardman. He then took off, flying through the air as terrified onlookers watched. After a short chase, the lizardman ducked into a deserted alley. Jun-an turned into the alley right behind him, lips tight, thinking he had him. But the result? The alley was completely empty. He made a quick deduction based on the species' traits. They blend into their surroundings to hide. Just as he thought this case got more complicated, a childish voice called out, over here. The sound sent shivers down Shunan's spine. He whipped his head around, wondering, who's that? What's with that weak voice? He looked over and saw the sound came from a slime. The slime chirped cheerfully. Right here, Sunan just face-palmed, reminding it, Slimes are supposed to maintain human form. Please change back to your human form. Quickly. The slime just gave him a strange look and said, "It's okay. Nobody comes here." More importantly, it sounded like you wanted to say something. Sunan looked at the clueless slime. It pointed to the adjacent wall and grumbled, "I don't like this guy." Its annoyance was clear. He just sat down next to me. The more the slime talked, the more the wall seemed to bulge. It even bumped against the invisible thing to claim its territory. "This is my spot." The lizard man couldn't stand the tickling from the slime's hand anymore, and finally revealed himself with a shout. "Stop it. What the hell are you doing? It's disgusting." He reached out to grab the slime. "You damn slime." The sudden shout made the lizardman jump, completely forgetting about Sunan's presence. He quietly recited an incantation, and a magic barrier materialized around Agent SL, deflecting the lizardman's claws. Thrown off balance, the lizardman crashed to the ground. Sunan calmly strode over and asked, "You all right?" Standing over the criminal, he smirked mockingly. "Mr. Suspect." The lizard man froze mid-motion, stunned by his words. When he was just throwing rocks at the third floor, I thought he was some kind of lunatic, not a well-dressed person like this. The man suddenly flew into a rage, veins popping on his forehead as he snarled through his teeth. "You bastard!" The lizard man opened his massive, crocodile-like maw and roared, "Why do you keep interfering with my business?" Almost instantly, Sun An casually flicked his wrist, and heavy iron chains shot out to bind the lizard man tight. Even his snout was wrapped twice. But this guy was the type to never repent. Struggling with all his might, Sun An raised an eyebrow, looking down with a bored expression. "No wonder you're acting so irrationally." Based on the pinkish magical aura around the lizard man, he diagnosed that he'd been influenced by charm magic. With that said, he unchained the lizard man's muzzle. The creature just roared deliriously, "Break the spell now." Seeing the guy had nearly lost all reason, Sunan had to reassess just how powerful this charm's influence was. Could it be that he was also affected by Mev's charm? Worse yet, its power had now surged past normal levels. Sunan took a closer look at the lizard's body to diagnose him. If this continued, his mana flow would backlash, putting his life in danger. Realizing the criminal was about to meet his maker, he rushed forward, saying, "We need to get you to a hospital for treatment immediately. The power of the charm is completely overwhelming right now." Sun and quietly warned, "One careless mistake and you'll lose your life." But this reptile's brain was filled with nothing but love and jealousy, so of course he couldn't hear a word. He just growled, "This cursed magic." The lizard man suddenly shot to his feet, roaring at the top of his lungs, "I'll crush it." This was a known trait of his species. They possess a special magic resistance, using their tails to nullify spells by maxing out their defensive ability. Sun An saw it coming and leaped high into the air. While suspended in mid-air, he opened his mouth and chanted another spell, "Double Gravity." Immediately after, he stomped down hard on the tail just as it was about to act up, the sole of his shoe landing squarely on its magic circle. The powerful shock made the creature shudder. The lizard man crumpled to the ground, clutching his tail in absolute agony. As he landed, Sunan commented, "You should use that power more carefully. The feedback could injure you or even sever your tail." He smiled slyly, looking like a cunning fox. "Luckily for you, I controlled the impact, so your tail is still intact." Beaten, the lizard man started playing the victim card. "You bastard, how can a public servant attack a citizen? Call the police. I'll report everything you've done." Sunan just let out a pleasant little chuckle. "Oh dear, what a shame for you. My actions count as legitimate self-defense." He then took another step closer. This time, the lizard man didn't dare run his mouth. In fact, he looked terrified, completely overwhelmed by Sun An's willpower. Golden magic crackled like lightning, arcing from his official government ID card. Sunan made sure those powerful sparks also fried a nearby street camera. After destroying the evidence, he cracked his knuckles with a dark smile. "Before the police arrive, I'll help you grasp your current situation." The lizard man was frozen solid, stammering, "What?" He simply called out one phrase, "Double Gravity." A sickening thud and a miserable scream immediately followed. Agent SL winced, feeling the pain just by watching. After the thorough beating, the lizard man's mind and body wouldn't forget this lesson. Having taught him his lesson, Sun An got bored, dusting off his hands while thinking, "Time to call the police." He turned to the only witness in the alley, shouting, "Hey, Agent SL." The kid nearly jumped out of his skin. Sun An's tone became strict. "I warned you, yet you still haven't returned to your human form? You've violated the shape maintenance law. You're coming with me." Terrified tears streamed down SL's face, but he didn't dare argue. After a long moment, he quietly tried to explain, "But this is my house." A little later, in room 1302 of Mentos Hospital, Sunan was reviewing security footage. On camera 5, it was just the usual scene of people coming and going, business as usual. But on camera 8, the lizard man's face popped right up on screen, skulking around like a grave robber. Seeing the hard evidence, Sun An sighed in relief. The security cameras these days were incredibly sharp. He hadn't expected them to capture everything so clearly. Sun. And leisurely joked with the suspect. You're quite photogenic, you know. But the guy was clearly suffering from some serious psychological trauma. The sound of his voice alone made the lizard man go rigid. But Sun An didn't care about the guy's trauma. He just kept talking. People under the influence of the charm always mistake it for true love. They think anyone who gets in their way is a nuisance. But no matter the influence, he still had to pay for the crimes he committed. After all, not everyone who falls in love resorts to criminal behavior. He then turned to the police, asking them to proceed with the investigation. When you find a motive, please let me know. Stepping out of the monitoring room, he happened to run into that Solai creature in the alley. The creature was being questioned by the police, his face a mask of utter despair. Sun An casually walked over to speak on the Solai's behalf. Although this Solai violated the shape maintenance laws, he was a great help in resolving this case. Hearing the familiar voice, the creature looked up. Sun An gave the Solai a nod and said, I'd like to request leniency for him. After that, he returned to the monitoring room to continue his unfinished work. Hours later, he was finally released. Exhausted, Sun An mumbled to himself that it was finally time to go home, but all that effort had been worth it. He reviewed his work. He'd suppressed the rampant charm, and the culprit was caught. Now the investigation could be handed over to the police. But before Sun An could leave the hospital, Mever found him. Seeing her approach, he said, I told you that you didn't need to come here. Mever, having a strong sense of responsibility, immediately argued back, but that person was also a victim of my power. He didn't agree, sharing his own point of view. You don't need to worry about disgusting people like them. If they truly loved you, they never would have done those things. Sun An sincerely advised. So put those thoughts out of your head, Miss Mever, and let's go home. The atmosphere was getting sentimental, and then she dropped a bomb. But I'm on duty today. Things between them suddenly got awkward. Sun An helplessly replied, Well then, I don't know what to say. Mever just giggled. Her voice softened as she expressed her gratitude. Thank you for telling me that this wasn't my fault. Then she quickly asked, Could I have a moment of your time? Sunan was confused. What? He followed Mever into the clinic, where he received some bad news. You have gastritis. The diagnosis was so sudden he couldn't process it, just staring in shock. What? Mever grabbed a nearby file and strictly instructed him. Make sure you take your medicine on time, and you have to avoid alcohol for a while. Also, avoid any spicy foods or anything that might irritate your stomach. Sun An still hadn't recovered from the initial shock. She put on her glasses to review the data in his file, giving a more in-depth diagnosis. In your condition, this could easily become chronic. She then asked, Are you normally under a lot of stress? He mumbled an answer. You could say that. He thought to himself that it was more than just one or two things. Mever shot him a sharp look with a special warning. Now, take your full prescription, and come back for a follow-up in 2 days. This isn't the kind of thing that heals in a day or two. Sun An hadn't given up hope, weakly trying to negotiate. So you mean I can't have any alcohol until then? Not even a tiny sip? Her voice was like steel. That's right, not a single drop. With those words, Sun An's spirit just withered away. After her thorough instructions, Mever cheerfully saw him off, saying she'd see him again with a healthy stomach. Meanwhile, Sunan felt like a dried-up plant in a drought. Just then, Sun An's phone rang. The screen showed the caller, Team Leader Rocher. Sun An looked pale, sprawled on the sofa like he was drowning, his mind in chaos. He glanced out the window only to see a clear blue sky. Damn it, Sun An screamed in his head. He tiredly dragged his 20-year-old body, which felt like it had the bones of an 80-year-old, to his feet. I should have just gone to sleep. Why did I stay up all night gaming? With a pale face, he answered the call. Hello, team leader. Hearing his lifeless voice, Rocher asked with concern. Sorry, Sun An. Did I wake you up? I know it's early morning, but I have something to ask you. She got right to the point. Did you tell someone named Tutun he could stay at our office? Sun An was totally baffled and asked in confusion, Who is Tutun? This only made Rocher more flustered. I don't know either. He just showed up at the office and mentioned your name, she added. He's a Solai. Sun An scratched his messy hair, mind buzzing. A Solai? I don't know. Then, he suddenly remembered the mindless Solai from yesterday and said casually, Oh, right, that one. A chill suddenly ran down Sun An's spine. It couldn't be. At that moment, 2 words flashed across his TV screen. Game over. The moment he heard that mindless Solai was looking for him, he immediately rushed to the office. There, Tutun had taken on a human form, greeting him with a bright smile. Hello. He looked like a carefree 10-year-old and said, I've been waiting for you. When Rasher saw him, she waved him over. Hey, Sunan, he ran over, completely out of breath, and asked, You were waiting for me? Tutun calmly explained why he was there. That's right, as you can see. I've lost my home, so I came here for help finding a new one. Hearing him say it so casually, Sunan offered some serious advice. I'm sorry, but if you're lost, you should probably go to the police station. After you report what happened, they'll do their best to help you get back. Hearing this, Tutun panicked and quickly tried to clarify. No, I'm not lost. I've lost my home. His expression crumpled as he added sadly. Besides, the police won't help me. Rasher couldn't resist the cuteness, immediately offering comfort. Oh dear, please don't cry. Here, drink some hot cocoa. Sun An could only watch, speechless. What in the world am I even doing here? Tutun explained with pure innocence. When I got back yesterday, the landlord forced me to leave. I had been staying there for a while. Sunan just sighed. This is a classic species trait. The Solai tribe don't have permanent homes. They wander everywhere and settle wherever they feel like it. He silently pieced it together. The kid must have gone home yesterday and been kicked out. Although the Solai's situation was tragic, he still had to be direct. This is a really unfortunate situation, but settling down without the owner's permission is against the law, whether it's on the street or anywhere else. Of course, Sun An wasn't so heartless that he'd leave someone to wander the streets alone. He advised in a softer voice, if you need help, you should go to the 2nd floor of the community center. If you meet the qualifications, you'll be assigned temporary housing. Hearing that, Tutun's spirit sank again, his voice flat. I thought you would be able to help me. He dejectedly stood up, politely pushing his chair in before leaving. Roser couldn't help but call out, Tutun. Tutun shuffled out of the office, muttering resentfully, my real home used to be this place. Sunan was stunned, watching the poor kid drag himself toward the door. His team leader, Roser, glared at him as if he were a criminal. Sunan felt helpless, stammering, Why are you looking at me like that? Sun An said rationally, This isn't a matter that falls within the scope of the complaint resolution department. Roser let out a long sigh. Finding a home is too personal. If it involved other people, it would be different, which is what makes this so much harder. Sunan couldn't argue with that, so he simply looked away. He glanced over to where Tutun had sat, spotting a half-finished cocoa and a plate of chocolate chip cookies. It was sad, for sure, but work was work. The screen displayed the number 12. Sunan tried to continue his work, but his conscience wouldn't let him. Images of a cheerful Tutun and a dejected Tutun kept flashing in his mind, distracting him completely. He found himself worrying, wondering if the kid was still out there looking for a place. He even found himself trying to think of ways to help the Solai boy while he was in the middle of a consultation. Getting a landowner's permission isn't a simple matter. While he was lost in thought, his next client arrived. The androgynous-looking client spoke with a timid formality. I'm sorry, the Medusa species has a powerful self-defense instinct. We're extremely cautious. The person said hesitantly, I came here because I have a concern about my job. Son, and quickly switched into work mode, offering a bright smile. What's the specific issue? She glanced at her own hair and then began her explanation. As you can see, I'm a Medusa. Whenever I get angry, my hair turns into snakes. Because of this trait, I've had many conflicts with my colleagues. Even when I get just a little worked up, the snakes appear and cause arguments among everyone. Just as she finished her sentence, her hair transformed into a nest of snakes, and every single one of them looked incredibly aggressive. The Medusa woman grabbed one snake and held it out for him to see, saying urgently, This has led to some very hurtful arguments. They even appear just from thinking about it. Sun An commented with a sympathetic look. It's easy to see how this would cause problems. He reassured her in a warm voice. First off, you've come to the right place. Because this is a problem arising from your species' characteristics, it falls within our jurisdiction. The Medusa woman's face relaxed a little, but the snakes were still hissing. Sun An got straight to work. I'm going to use magic to temporarily suppress your condition. Please don't be too surprised or alarmed. The Medusa woman quickly replied, Yes, I understand. He chanted a single word, and a green magical net appeared. After he cast the spell, a chaotic flow of mana surged through her body and the snakes. Sun An narrowed his eyes, carefully observing and assessing the magical current. After scanning it, he had a definitive answer. After my examination, I believe I can resolve your concern. The Medusa woman's eyes lit up. Really? Sun-An delivered his diagnosis. In my judgment, your mana increases sharply whenever you get angry, acting as a defense mechanism. Because of your mana's sensitivity, even a small emotional fluctuation can easily cause your hair to change form. The reason for this mana sensitivity is complex, so it's hard to explain in full detail. The Medusa woman, not quite following, quickly asked, "Is that really true?" She muttered to herself. But when the Mages Association examined me, they said there was nothing wrong. Sun-An fumed internally at those incompetent, noisy clowns. Outwardly, however, he maintained his professional smile. I know it might be hard to believe, but it is indeed the case. He could tell she was still doubtful, so he explained more than he usually would. Because he used a different kind of magic to find what the association couldn't, it was an ability they struggled to accept. But he was a civil servant chosen by the nation, working for the Special Interspecies Complaint Department. Sun-An dropped his usual professional smile. With a dead serious expression, he makes a vow, "I will never deceive a client under my care." The Medusa woman could feel the sincerity in his words, and her heart warmed as Sun-An pressed his case. But he didn't even need to. Before he could say more, she smiled. "I believe you." He almost couldn't believe his ears. The Medusa woman looked him dead in the eye and repeated, "I believe you, Hyo-Sunan." She shyly explained the real reason for her trust. "This might sound weird, but my little sister told me all about you. You gave her glasses when she was in trouble." The memory of the young Medusa schoolgirl immediately clicks into place. Getting a pair of glasses from the Witches Association can take weeks. Realizing they were sisters, the family resemblance was suddenly obvious. "I'm so grateful you helped her back then," she says. "It's rare for a client to trust him this much." Sun-An is deeply moved, remembering why he does this job. He clears his throat to hide his emotions. "Well, my motivation just tripled. I never realized you two were sisters. All right, shall we begin the consultation?" He holds out his hand, revealing a simple metal ring in his palm. As he begins casting a spell, Sunan explains the issue. The root of her problem is her incredibly sensitive mana. This magic ring will help soothe that sensitivity. And don't worry, he adds, the cost is covered by my superiors. Strange, glowing characters begin to flow into the metal ring. The Medusa woman can only stare in awe. Sun-An makes a precise gesture, tucking in his thumb and last two fingers before giving his wrist a flick. The spell is nearly complete. The ring glows brighter than ever, then flies directly onto her finger, leaving her speechless. With the clients, he explained that whenever she felt agitated, she should rub the ring to calm her mana fluctuations by engraving the process onto her body. This would even improve her mana capacity when she was angry. To be safe, he advised her to put the ring on immediately. She bowed gratefully, saying, "Thank you, Hyo-Sunan." Then, she respectfully offered him her business card with both hands, hoping to one day repay his kindness. "If you need help, please don't hesitate to call." The simple card simply read, "Manan, journalist." Sun-An wondered why he was suddenly getting so many business cards. With her problem solved, Manan stood up from her chair to leave. "Well, I'll see you later," he replied politely. "Yes, and please send my regards to your little sister." Another case perfectly resolved. Sun-An sighed, picked up his cup, and thought about another job well done. He raised the cup to his lips for a drink, thinking it was time for a break, not noticing the strange green color inside. But a bizarre flavor hit him. Sun-An froze, covering his mouth as the liquid in the cup suddenly yelled, "Hey, stop!" It was the clueless slime, Tutun, holding application number 13, right after the Medusa lady. He just giggled and said, "That tickles." Sun-An was stunned. His face went dark, his eyes narrowed, and he asked in a chilling voice, "What in the world?" he asked, practically grinding his teeth. "You're here again." Tutun, completely missing the irritation in his tone, waved the paper and replied, "I was waiting my turn. I'm here as a client." He commented casually while Sun-An looked like he was having a heart attack, barely restraining the urge to punch his new client. "But this coffee is so bitter. You should add more sugar next time." After a brief internal struggle, Sun-An's professionalism won out. He let out a long sigh and started the conversation. "Tutun, I believe we already discussed this matter, didn't we? Finding a home is a personal issue, not something we can assist you with." Tutun hopped out of the coffee cup, quivering in disagreement. "But this isn't a personal problem. I'm not that stupid, you know." Sun-An's brow furrowed with a troubled expression. "How is finding a house not a personal issue? If you're trying to find a place to stay, you should be speaking with a real estate agent." As he said it, he suddenly remembered Tutun leaving dejectedly before, muttering, "This place used to be my home." It all clicked as his own mouth went dry. Could it be this place? Sun-An asked, a strange idea forming in his mind. Is this the lost house you mentioned? Tutun looked up at him with an unbelievably innocent expression and asked, "You actually believe me?" Sun An looked serious. "I always believe what my clients tell me. But can you explain the situation in more detail?" Overjoyed, Tutun morphed into a blob and hugged his head, shouting, "Thank you for believing me." Barely breathing, Sun An gasped, "You can thank me later." A moment later, Tutun began to recount the story based on his fragmented memories. "I've never heard anyone before, but they called me an evil slime and kicked me out of here." Hearing that key phrase, he quickly cut in with a question. "Kicked out? By who?" Tun hesitated at the question, then stammered, "Well, that's the thing. It was a few months ago, so I don't really remember the details. I just know I had to get over my fear. With the case at a dead end, Sun An had to find another lead. This all happened so long ago, he wouldn't know about it personally. He hadn't even started working here back then, so he figured he had to ask around." Mr. Tran started to say, "All right, please wait a moment," but Tutan, surprisingly cheerful, replied, "I'll wait right here. After all, I think I'm probably unemployed anyway." Sunan tried to reassure Tutone first. "Let's discuss that later, okay? Please just wait here for now." Seeing his bright smile, he knew Tutan didn't need a pep talk. Sunan went to ask his more senior colleagues for information. He called over the girl from the fairy species first. "Ho ya." Sunan got straight to the point. "I have a question. You've been working here for more than a month, right?" It was rare for him to ask for help, so Chisa answered with gusto, "Yes, for exactly 39 days. Hearing that, Sunan knew he'd asked the wrong person. "Then you probably don't know anything about it either." He glanced aside awkwardly and explained, well, I'm facing a minor crisis today." Chisa heard that last word and froze, yelling in absolute horror, "A crisis!" She didn't even hear the rest of his sentence, already flying off to alert another colleague. Lai Jiang spread the now urgent news. "Sunan is having a crisis." Lai Jiang, pale as a ghost, screamed with his mouth wide open, "He's having a crisis." Then they both grabbed Sun An and lifted him up. Lai Jiang gave an urgent order. "To the team leader's office, quickly." Only Sun An had no idea why these two were acting so ridiculously. What is happening right now? He was dragged by Li Jiang and Chisa as they burst into the team leader's office. Lai Jiang frantically reported, "Team leader." Ratso looked over with a smile. "Huh? Why is everyone here?" Just then, she received the terrible news. Sun An is having a crisis. The words hit her like a thunderbolt. Ratso was so shocked, she dropped her files, her mouth agape. "A crisis?" She quickly led the way. "Get inside, hurry up." The only one who didn't understand the intense reaction was Sun An himself. He was stunned, thinking, how did things end up like this? After the chaos and an explanation, the misunderstanding was finally cleared up, so she asked again with a beaming smile to confirm, a holy aura practically shining from behind her. "You're not thinking of resigning, are you?" Sun An gave a weak smile. "Sadly, no." Chisa was so embarrassed she wanted to disappear, covering her face with both hands, weakly saying, "Please forgive me, it was just a misunderstanding." Now that she knew the whole mess was just a mistake, Ratso used a light-hearted tone to ease the awkwardness. "It's okay, don't worry about it. I was just worried I'd have to beg Sunan to stay with our unit. Anyway, I'm glad it's not that kind of crisis." Then she smoothly changed the topic. "So, what's on your mind?" Sun An caught the signal from Rat, so, his expression turning serious as he said, "I have a question about Tutone, our complainant." He wondered, were there any Solai living here a few months ago? Hearing the question, Ratso was confused. "Here? In our community center?" Sunan explained the situation with a serious tone. "That's right. According to him, he was kicked out of here, and now he's about to lose his job. If that's true, then this falls under our jurisdiction, and we have to investigate." Hearing how serious the situation was, Chisa couldn't help but worry for Tuton. Due to their species biology, they tend to settle anywhere. So many Solai get evicted from places they legally own, she said anxiously. "But I've never seen any trace of a Solai here." Lai Zhang also shook his head in agreement. "Me neither." When the veteran members of the Special Complaints Department all shook their heads, he knew the case had hit another dead end. Both of them had been working at this post for many years. If they've never seen anything, can anyone confirm Tutone's story? Just as the room fell silent, Rat So suddenly shot up and exclaimed, "I just remembered something." She said hurriedly, "I actually did hear that a Solai used to live here. I'm not sure if it was Tutone, but I definitely heard that someone kicked that Solai out." Rat So said enthusiastically, "I'll review the incident and let you know. Once we know the details, we can definitely solve this case." Seeing a new glimmer of hope, Sunan said gratefully, Thank you so much, team leader. Her energy returned as she said magnanimously, "It's a small thing. Now let's get back to work." The team members shouted in unison. Understood. As Sunan prepared to return to two-tone, Rotso called him back with her familiar, charming smile. "Sunan, wait." She expertly started her pitch. "If you go back to sorting other complaints, you'll just keep worrying about two-tone's words, right?" Sunan unknowingly fell into her trap, responding with a question. "Well, I guess so." Hearing the answer she wanted, Rotso's smile grew even wider as she eagerly suggested, "So, how about taking him with you to handle some fieldwork?" Sun An began to sense the hidden motive and asked in a sharp voice, "What are you talking about?" Rotso just laughed, persuading him cheerfully, "Well, there's outside work that needs to be done anyway. Besides, while you're working, you can also help Tuton find a new place to live, killing two birds with one stone." Sunan saw right through it and shot back. "Aren't you just trying to dump more work on me?" The boss instantly switched to her sweet-talking anti-mode, laying on the flattery. "It's just two little things. A piece of cake for you." Sun An knew his boss was just offloading work, but honestly, she had a point. He couldn't argue. In the end, he had to solve Tun's problem anyway, so refusing was out of the question. After a few seconds of internal struggle, Sunan finally caved. "So, where do I need to go?" Hearing his agreement, the boss beamed. "Thanks, Sunan. I'll send you the details." And just like that, thanks to his boss's little scheme, Sunan had to start investigating Tun's housing issue. This time, he brought Tun along with him. The ghost was blooming with joy, grinning as he promised, "I won't get in your way, son," and pretended to be cold and professional, warning him sternly, "Whatever I do, you don't interfere, and don't you dare change your form." Tun obediently followed behind, agreeing to everything. "I'll just watch from the back, I promise." Then he asked excitedly, "So, will you help me find a new house?" Sun An, already feeling tired, gave a flat reply. "First, I need to see if I can even approach the entity responsible," he added cautiously, "but don't get your hopes up, we might not find anything." Tun just gave a goofy smile, completely unfazed. "That's okay. I'm just happy you're trying." After walking for a bit, Sunan stopped to check his phone. "Let me just review the complaint details," he thought as he read from a document titled Citizen Complaint Report. First up, slimes obstructing a public path. The details. A group of 3 slimekin have been occupying a single spot for days, obstructing pedestrians despite repeated requests from residents to move. They still refuse to budge. The report shows a picture of the path completely blocked by the slimes. The complainant was clearly furious. They wouldn't let anyone pass. Sunan wondered how he should handle this. They even yelled at me, telling me I was ignoring the fact that they're slimes. After giving a warning, his next job was to photograph the location where Tun was kicked out. With a basic understanding, he planned his next steps. The second task, find a missing shin bone for a skeleton. Turns out the boss had thrown in a report about a minor traffic incident. Apparently, a skeleton had a run-in with a centaur, a fight broke out, and a shin bone went flying, never to be seen again. Sounds simple enough. Finding things is my specialty. Sunan and glanced back at Tun with a hint of concern. None of these tasks were that hard. But right then, Tun was staring at a street food stall, practically drooling. I wonder what that tastes like. With such an easily distracted partner, he couldn't help but worry if he'd ever get to clock out on time. The two kept walking until they reached a neighborhood with buildings that looked just a few years old. Tun looked around in awe and exclaimed, "I really like this building." Sun An didn't even look up from his phone. "Hey, aren't we supposed to be dealing with your housing complaint right now?" he promised. "Once we resolve the first complaint, I'll help you find a house." Tun pouted, mumbling, "You're so rigid." Sunan didn't hear the comment, continuing to follow his phone's directions. They should be in this alley. And sure enough, inside the alley were 3 slimes, blue, yellow, and black, chatting away. Seeing them was a ray of hope. Sun An thought, maybe I can wrap this up before lunch. He steeled his face and said, "I'll be right back." Tun peeked from behind the wall with a cheerful look. "Okay, be careful." Sunan walked up and gave a polite greeting. "Good afternoon. My name is Sunan. I'm from the Special Interspecies Complaint Resolution Department." The slimes immediately stopped talking, their expressions anything but welcoming. The black one raised a brow sarcastically. "What's a public servant like you doing here?" Sun An first presented his ID badge, beginning the official procedure. "You are in violation of the Form Maintenance Act. Not to mention, we've received a complaint that this path has been blocked for 3 straight days." The black slime just shrugged, wobbling back and forth with a smug look. "How could that be? We've only been here for about 30 minutes. Besides, I'm sure you know my species is hated by many, so it's not like we have anywhere else to go." Hearing these pathetic excuses, Sunan's impression of these arrogant blobs got even worse. What nonsense. Seems like every species has its jerks. He didn't bother arguing about the 3-day timeline and moved on to the next charge, leaving the black slime speechless. What you just said has nothing to do with failing to maintain your humanoid form. Or is there a special reason why that should be an excuse to break the law? Realizing they'd messed with the wrong guy, the black slime immediately softened its tone. The other two slimes stopped messing around, nodding in agreement. Honestly, maintaining a human form is harder than it looks. Instead, let's talk about the case. So much for a reliable partner. Toon peeked from behind the wall to check things out. He wasn't wrong, you know. Maintaining a specific shape must be incredibly uncomfortable for them. But Shunan was furious, his voice low. He was all business, stating coolly, "Comfortable or not, you've broken the law. If you don't change your forms, I will call the police." Faced with Shunan's hard line, the sly creatures reluctantly transformed. Once they were in human form, the black sly spoke for the group, his irritation obvious. "All right, are you satisfied now?" Sunan adjusted his glasses, completely unfazed. "No. The complaint also says you three have blocked this road for the past 3 days. Since you've ignored numerous warnings, we've been asked to perform a preliminary background check," he explained. "Just following procedure. I expect your full cooperation." The sly was even more annoyed, hissing through clenched teeth. "What? A background check?" he exploded, stepping right up to Sunan's face. "Hey, what right do you have to assume we're the sly mentioned in that complaint, huh? Or is it just because we're all sly? Is that why you're treating us this way?" Sunan just listened to him twist the facts. Pulling out his equipment, he flashed a familiar, professional smile and set the record straight. "It seems my words have been misunderstood. If you'd like, I can verify who is who right now." He first pointed out the dark sly. "Among you, there is one with a black base and white stripes." Then, he turned to the bright yellow one. "The second has a yellow base with orange flowers." After that, he glanced at the shyest-looking, spring-green sly and said, "The last one is green with a few red squares." Sunan grinned. "This is the description we received, and you all match the complaint perfectly." The detailed descriptions made one thing clear about the sly species: their shapes are similar, but their patterns have subtle differences in size and detail. The black sly was speechless, but still stubbornly tried to argue his way out of it. "This isn't fair. Why are we the only ones being singled out like this? The other races don't even have to deal with these kinds of identity checks." Hearing the black sly's complaint, Sunan explained his unit's policy with a stern face. "We conduct background checks on anyone who violates the law. It doesn't matter what race you are, that's how we operate. If you don't like it, you shouldn't have broken the law to begin with." The black sly muttered to himself with a pained smile, as if remembering some other terrible injustice. "It's always the same. We get investigated, while the other races get a pass." Seeing this wasn't an act, Sunan felt compelled to speak. "In an identical situation, I would say the same thing to a member of any other race, because that is the principle, and this is the job." His voice was calm and steady. "Correct. I don't know what kind of discrimination or oppression you may have faced, and even if I did, there's no way I could understand that pain as deeply as someone who has lived it." And then, like clockwork, Shunan took the chance to advertise his department's special services for any and all situations. "If something like that did happen, please contact the Civil Affairs Division." His promise was sincere. "We are always ready to address any concerns. That's why the Civil Affairs Division exists." The black sly had rarely heard such genuine words and asked if he was for real. "Of course," Sunan said. "You can record me if you don't believe me." He tried to continue his convincing pitch. "I will repeat myself again so that you can." But the black sly just scratched his head and cut him off. "Nah, forget it. I don't have time to record that kind of stuff. So let's just finish this and go." He wanted to be sure. "After we complete the background check, you'll let us go?" Seeing their cooperation, Sunan's expression softened. Of course, hearing that guarantee, the black sly agreed for all three. "Fine. Just this once." Toon, seeing the situation was wrapping up, curiously peeked out again. He politely asked, "Can I come closer now?" Sunan's reply was ice cold. "No. Wait for me over there." Toon whined, bored out of his mind. "But why? I promise I'll be quiet." Sunan switched to bribery. "How about we get something to eat after this?" He dangled the bait. "The team leader gave me the office card and told me to treat you to something nice." An image of a rich benefactor smiling kindly formed in Toon's mind. His voice trembled with excitement. "She really said that?" He pointed to a boulder on the ground and asked, "In that case, can I eat that rock over there?" The sly species has another very unique trait: they can eat anything. But was Sun-an going to let him eat a rock? No way. He grabbed Tutun's hand and yelled, "What are you talking about? We have to use it on something worthwhile. Come with me." Tutun happily followed, saying, "Okay." Junan took him to a restaurant and ordered an absolutely incredible spread of food. Tutun was drooling with excitement, his mouth hanging open. "You ordered all of this?" Zunan held up the leader's card generously. "You can eat as much as you want. Model." With the owner's blessing, Tutun didn't hold back, grabbing his utensils and shouting a huge thank you for the meal. Sun-an couldn't stop the happy tears either, thinking to himself, "How long has it been since I've had a proper lunch like this?" He was finally eating like a human again. He recalled his recent dog-tired days and sighed with longing. He used to just wolf down every meal, like something was chasing him, and it always made him sick. But today, he could eat at a relaxed pace. He wished every day could be this peaceful, watching Tutun munch away with a thoughtful gaze. Tutun spoke up. "Hey." Sunan looked over at his voice and asked, "What's on your mind?" For once, Tutun was completely serious. "If I can't find a place to stay, I think this could be a great new home." Hearing that, Sunan immediately got up to ask for him. "Then let me go ask the manager." He walked over to the counter. "Excuse me." The manager looked over with a stern expression. Sun-an put on a polite smile, asking, "I have a Solai who would like to settle down here. Is that possible?" The manager mumbled, "A Solai?" Almost without hesitation, he flatly refused. "I'm afraid not. The building owner doesn't want any Solai residents here. Besides, it wouldn't look good for the shop." Seeing no room to argue, Sunan had to retreat. "I understand." The manager looked genuinely sorry, saying, "My apologies, but my hands are tied." Sunan quickly replied, "It's okay. I get it. Thank you." Tutun was still holding his knife and fork, waiting for him patiently. Seeing Sunan return, he broke into a wide smile. Tutun asked, "So, how did it go?" Sunan had to soften the blow. Well, the manager said that for various reasons, Solai can't live here." He said with a sigh, "Sorry, looks like we'll have to find another place." Tutun knew his kind wasn't always welcome, and his voice carried a hint of disappointment. "I get it. I really did like this place, though." He quickly perked up, adding gratefully, "Thanks for asking anyway. I wouldn't have dared to on my own." And just like that, the guilt hit Sunan, and even harder. Sun-an replied gently, "It's nothing. That's my job." His determination only grew stronger as he made a promise. "I will absolutely find a place that you'll love. So if you see somewhere like that, just tell me. I'll ask permission for you." Hearing that promise, Tutun's mood lifted immediately as he chirped, "Okay." And so began Sun-an's long days of getting yelled at. The first person after the restaurant stammered nervously, "I'm sorry, that's just not possible. It would put me in a very difficult position." The next stop was a flower shop. The owner, shrieked, "Are you kidding me? Do I need to rub salt in your face for you to talk sense?" After that was a factory, where the owner was even more intimidating. "Absolutely not. Ask me one more time and I'm calling the cops." Sun-an felt a chill down his spine from the threat, his face pale as he stammered, "I'm sorry." After the umpteenth rejection, he walked the streets with a heavy heart. He thought in despair, "How many more times will I have to be rejected like this?" It seemed the public image of the Solai was even worse than he imagined. And while some owners were just hot-tempered, he could understand their harsh reactions. The Solai tend to settle down just about anywhere they please, even if it causes a huge inconvenience for others. That habit, combined with their already negative image, just kept fueling the prejudice among the general public. Sunan sighed as he walked. And because of this vicious cycle, the unemployment rate among the Solai had skyrocketed. If only people understood how important the Solai truly are. Because of that prejudice, most people have no idea that the Solai work the jobs. No one else will touch dirty places, filled with pollutants because the fluid their bodies secrete has a purifying effect. So, to repay the Solai for handling these environmental cleanup jobs, the state provides them with many benefits. This includes things like reduced interest rates and extra points when purchasing a home. But ironically, that same unique, helpful trait also made finding a home even more difficult. Sun-an couldn't help but sigh. The problem is, their ideal home isn't an apartment, so that housing bonus doesn't really count as a benefit at all. He glanced over at the little blue Solai walking beside him. Tutun was still strolling along, completely carefree. It only made Sun-an more stressed out. He could barely keep his expression from twisting. If only he looked a little sad instead of so used to this, I would feel better. "What am I supposed to do?" As they stood by a park, he announced, "We have to stop here for today. We're almost at the second complainant's place." Tutun understood immediately. "Oh, we're here?" Okay, that's fine. But Sunan asked with worry. Tutun, are you really okay? The little guy just beamed back, comforting him instead. I'm fine. I didn't expect to find a place this quickly anyway. Before they parted ways, he even offered a blessing. Don't worry about me and do a good job. The pressure on Sunan grew even heavier. He paused for a second before answering. Okay, you wait for me right here. Leaving the Solai 2 file behind, Shunan scans the street where Seaton and Sagittarius collided. His second task finds Seaton's missing shin bone. To speed things up, Sunan sweeps his hair back, preparing to use his magic. He has to finish this fast and get back to the office, not to mention reporting today's search results to his team leader. He lets out a sharp breath, and his bronze-gold eyes instantly flare crimson. The world around him transforms into a thin steel web, pulsing with magical energy of every color. Holding a bone fragment, he begins channeling a spell into it. This piece of bone belongs to the petitioner. Shunan's magic locks onto its aura, beginning the search. It doesn't take long. The other piece of the leg bone is located on the roof of a shop. Jun-an effortlessly uses his magic to retrieve it, his mind racing. No wonder they couldn't find it. How did it even get up there? Tutun peeks out from behind a tree, asking, Zunan, did you find the bone yet? He hears the reply, yeah, got it. Just as Zunan is about to head back, he senses a familiar aura. We're returning to the civil affairs office, he states. But that power is so intensely familiar that he instinctively turns, searching for the source of the charm magic. Tutun, who was waiting, watches as he suddenly bolts in a different direction. Sunan, where are you going? He calls out, confused. It wasn't just Sunan who felt it, even the people on the street were starting to be affected. Is that a sweet smell? I'm feeling a little dizzy. Hearing this, Sunan immediately summons a light breeze with his magic, scattering the dangerous scent. He then uses magic to accelerate, flying like an arrow through the gaps between pedestrians. He runs frantically, chasing the trail of charm magic, his heart pounding and his expression taut with tension. This feeling is too familiar. He's absolutely certain he's encountered it before. It takes him a moment to remember. It was very recent, in fact. Then, it hits him an image of the lizard man screaming, none of this would have happened if you'd stayed away from Maeve from the start. Sunan's mind races. He knew then that the man was under Maeve's influence, but he'd felt something was off when her powers didn't quite match the situation. He had assumed it was just unstable mana causing the changes. But as Zun-an pieces it together, he grits his teeth. That entire hypothesis was wrong from the very beginning. He has to throw out his old theory, a new one screaming in his mind the lizard man was being controlled by another demon all along. Suddenly, the incident at Mentos Hospital just became infinitely more complex than he ever imagined. The lizard man's actions were dictated by this other entity, faking being charmed by Maeve when, in reality, it was another demon pulling the strings. That overwhelming charm magic was coming from a figure with long, flowing hair. This person was radiating an immense amount of power. She wore a pair of red-heeled shoes, stepping onto a bus in a simple yet elegant nude-colored dress. Jun-an rushes to the location, his eyes darting left and right, desperately searching for the source of the magic. But the trail ends here. He's one step too late as bus number 1004 pulls away, carrying the true culprit. Unable to catch the suspect, Sunan can only raise his phone toward the departing bus and snap a quick photo. Tutun finally catches up, gasping for breath. Sunan, what in the world is going on? Seeing Shunan's expression, he freezes. Shunan? Without a word, Shunan sends the photo to Jose, clearly reporting his new suspicions. Yes, team leader. Please have the police use the picture I sent to track them. A succubus released charm magic while getting on and off the bus. As he speaks, his fist clenches unconsciously, his voice dropping low. With a look of tense determination, he adds a request. If possible, please push this through quickly. Not long after, he brings Tutun back to the Special Interspecies Complaints Department. In the meeting room, Ross reports back to Shunan. After contacting the other party, I've also asked the hospital for their cooperation. The lizard man gave a false testimony and will soon be re-interrogated. Sun-an looks dejected, his hands clasped under his chin as he murmurs an apology. I'm sorry, this is all my fault. I made a judgment call way too hastily back then. Seeing how distraught he is, Ross takes a breath and offers a stern word of comfort. Don't blame yourself, Shunan. In that situation, no one could have known whose power it was. But Shunan doesn't see it that way, consumed by guilt. But if I had questioned things just a little more, this never would have happened. His shoulders tremble slightly. He thinks back, his voice shaking with fear. If I had just been more careful. Seeing Sunan about to fall apart, Ross places a gentle hand on his shoulder, her voice warm. Calm down, Sunan. The usually playful and somewhat unreliable Ross is now showing incredible maturity. She gets right to the point, encouraging him. After all, this is the Citizen Complaints Department. You still have us. Chisa and Li Jiang can help with the other complaints. Her sincere words finally seem to calm him, a spark of gratitude in his eyes. So just relax. Besides, nothing terrible has happened yet, right? After a stunned moment, Sunan's lips parted. That's right. Having sufficiently praised their top-ranked agent, Rot spun around to face Tutun. All right then, she declared. I'd say our work here is done. Tutun, she said, I need you to do something for me, okay? Caught off guard, he could only stammer out. Me? She pushed a massive stack of documents his way, explaining, this is a list of everyone working in the Civil Affairs Department. I've picked out a few people, but it'll be faster if Tutun just looks himself. Sunan quickly tried to explain, but he said he doesn't remember their faces. Rot just laughed, waving it off. You never know, she said. Maybe he'll see a picture and something will just click. Sunan, still worried, offered another idea. Why don't we just try looking for witnesses? There weren't any security cameras then. Tutun had barely glanced at the file when he suddenly shot to his feet, yelling, It's him! Tears of absolute misery streamed down his face as he pointed accusingly. That's the man who chased me away. I didn't even do anything. Rot was startled by his outburst and tried to calm him. Whoa, easy now. But Tutun couldn't be soothed. Honestly, I was only trying to help. Seeing him so completely overwhelmed made Sun On curious, so he picked up the file on the man Tutun was pointing at. So this was the person who had driven Tutun from his home? The profile contained a photo of a middle-aged man, along with his basic info name, Werewolf Clan, and his official government rank. Sun, and waited for Tutun to calm down, then offered him a cup of warm cocoa. Are you feeling a little better now? After composing himself, Tutun looked down, embarrassed by his own outburst. I'm sorry, he mumbled. I got a little emotional. No, don't be, Sun On quickly reassured him. You were treated unfairly. It's completely understandable. Here, drink some cocoa. He then gently steered the conversation back to the main point. What were you trying to tell us earlier? With his eyes still a bit watery, Tutun sadly recounted the events of that day. Someone just fainted right in front of my house, so I ran over to help, but then a stranger appeared and just started shouting that I was a murderer. Sun An's face hardened as he immediately picked up on the key detail. A murderer? Someone had intentionally set Tutun up. Tutun continued in a weak voice. And even though I didn't do anything, I ran away because I was terrified. A hint of confusion crept into his tone, but when I returned home, the tree I lived in was gone. In its place was just a long bench. That person cut down the tree I called home, he said sadly. His head hung low as fresh tears fell. The pain and unfairness of it all came rushing back to him. That tree was mine from the start. It was what my father left for me. Sun An's own anger flared up as he listened. The guy was a total scumbag. That is completely unacceptable behavior. He didn't just frame you, Sun An fumed. He chased you away and stole your home. He felt an immediate, burning need to confront this man. I really need to see this person right now. Rot rubbed her forehead, a headache coming on. Do you have any sense of self-preservation? He's a high-ranking official, you know. He's even achieved rank 12, putting him among the top 5. Even for a vampire from a massively wealthy clan like Rot, that was a big deal. I hear people at that level are usually terrifying, she warned. Sun On, however, had a different perspective. Do you really think they gave me this cushy job for no reason? He knew his own worth and wasn't about to be scared off. If they decided to push him, he would push back even harder. Even if they try to blow this whole thing out of proportion, they can't just fire me that easily. You know it as well as I do, a wizard working as a public official is incredibly rare. Rot couldn't argue with that, but she's still worried about him. That's true, she conceded, but don't be so stubborn. Just trust me and hear me out on this. Because as it turns out, I actually have some information for you. She was about to reveal a little-known secret. I've heard rumors about this man before. Apparently, he once transformed into a werewolf before the moon had even risen. He was immediately taken to the hospital to keep the rumors from spreading, and they ran blood tests to figure out the cause. Rot held up 2 fingers and continued. As you know, there are 2 things that can forcibly awaken a werewolf's power. One is the hypnotic power of a vampire, and the other is the alluring charm of a succubus. Hearing the culprit's backstory, the gears in Sun An's mind started turning. So, is it possible he was an accomplice in that other case? The team leader crossed her arms, looking like a wise sage. You've hit the nail on the head. We're talking about charm magic. Looking back on the recent incidents, Rot began to lay out her primary theory. It's possible a single mastermind is behind all of this, she proposed, then shrugged, dismissing her own idea. Or maybe not, because the incidents didn't happen at the same time. Sunan listened to all the possibilities she laid out, thought for a second, and then said, "Then there's only one way to verify it. According to common knowledge, there are two standard methods for treating someone who's been affected by charm magic. The first method requires a witch to directly channel mana into the body and filter out any lingering charm magic. The other method involves drawing blood and forcing it to recirculate, which displaces the mana. Most people worried about treatment costs or the risk of being charmed again, so they usually picked the second option. The drawn blood still contains the charm's power. In other words, by comparing blood samples from both the lizard man and the werewolf, they could track down whether the mastermind was the same person. Once he had a plan, he acted on it immediately. Which hospital is the werewolf being treated at? Knowing he would see this through, she answered plainly, "Coincidentally, it's Mentos Hospital." He shot back with a few sarcastic remarks, completely unfazed. Most people just saw him as a big, harmless puppy, but the second he saw my face, he started growling. The lizard man, having already taken a beating once, still hadn't learned his lesson. "You think this is over? Just wait until I get out of here. How dare you get between me and Meave?" Seeing everything go as predicted, Sunan couldn't help but feel a little troubled. He knew the guy was still under the charm's influence. He'd heard it takes 3 weeks to 6 months to fully recover. He ignored the lizardman's ridiculous hostility. "Wanting to get this over with quickly," he said, "I came to ask you a few questions, but seeing your condition, it looks like I won't be getting any answers." Knowing his target wouldn't cooperate, he wasn't afraid to push his buttons. "Son," and slowly took off his glasses, his eyes turning sharp. "Then I guess I'll just have to find the answers myself." He just uttered a single word, "trace," and a net-like energy surrounded the lizardman. The man saw that familiar, terrifying look in his eyes and his body jolted. In this state, Sunan could see all the magical energy inside his body. The flow of magic was now concentrated entirely in the heart. He could see the power-filled organ clearly and began his diagnosis. No matter how skillfully someone lies, they can't hide the flow of their mana. "Let me use this chance to prove Miss Meave isn't the cause of this incident." Sunan observed his internal state for a moment, then posed a question. "You said you love Meave, right?" The lizard man immediately snapped back at him. "Don't you dare say my woman's name with that filthy mouth of yours. Meave belongs only to me." Sunan just smirked, watching the mana-soaked heart while deliberately provoking him further. "Why would you say Meave belongs to you?" He suddenly dropped a bomb. "When, in fact, you've been in love with someone else from the very beginning." As expected, the lizard man was instantly flustered. He scrambled to defend himself. "What the hell are you talking about? Who are you to question my love?" Sunan relentlessly kept pushing, like the nosiest neighbor on the block. "Did your love tell you to say that? While you pretend to be in love with someone else?" The lizard man grew more and more agitated, and his heart filled with a purple-pink magic. "Don't make me laugh. My love belongs to Meave." Seeing his plan was working, Sunan stepped closer, his voice rising. How shameful. He placed one hand on the back of his neck, making the lizardman flinch by reflex, and launched a mental assault. "You're suffering so much, yet the person you call your lover is nowhere to be found." His voice was like a haunting whisper, cold and piercing, each word stabbing into the lizardman's mind. "It seems you've been abandoned, haven't you?" Now his heart wasn't just soaked in magic, it was being roasted by it. "Maybe you're not a good enough lover, huh? Don't be so hard on yourself. You just have bad luck." Sunan narrowed his eyes, looking just like the final boss of an action novel. He asked with sly cruelty, "You know it too, don't you? That you've been thrown away?" The lizardman's mind began to shatter under the weight of his words, his whole body trembling violently. His voice shook. "No!" He clenched his jaw, sharp fangs showing past his snout, his mind unable to take it anymore. "Not true!" And then, the sturdy shackles on his arms instantly shattered. The lizardman refused to accept what he was saying, lunging at him with his claws out. "I was not abandoned." Sunan provoked him, knowing full well he might get bitten, so he calmly used his old trick, summoning several chains. The solid iron chains wrapped tightly around his body, immobilizing him completely. In a flash, before the nearby officers could even move, he had the lizardman under control. Sunan had gotten what he needed and immediately switched back to civil servant mode. He held up his phone and said, "Thank you for your cooperation, and thank you for shouting so loud. I think I recorded everything on my body cam." He turned and left the room. "Hope you have a speedy recovery, model." He left the rampaging lizard man for the cops to handle. Without stopping, Sunan continued down the hospital corridor, on his way to the next location. A voice called out his name from down the hall, "Sunan." It was Miva. He recognized her and stopped. Sunan politely asked, "Hello, Miva. Did you get the message I sent?" She rushed over to him, slightly out of breath. I saw it, but I'm still not sure, she admitted, wondering. So that lizard man? He might not have been my doing? Sun An smiled, confirming. Yes, that's correct. We only just received these results ourselves, he said confidently. If you still have doubts, compare the sample to my blood. They won't match. This news brought a wave of relief over Vora. Her hand clenched unconsciously. Vora wiped a tear from her eye, a radiant smile finally breaking through. That's right, she sighed. At least it wasn't my fault. I feel so much lighter now. After that moment, she was all business again. By the way, the test requested by the Civil Affairs Office is back with results. According to the hospital's precise measurements, the charm power levels in both blood samples were a perfect match. Vora explained frantically. I'm not sure why the two samples matched, but I've already reported this to the police. Fearing he'd be suspicious, she explained that the vial contained blood from both the criminal and herself. Charm mixes well in blood, but the saturation levels are never the same. Catching the key point, he immediately had a question. So you're saying charm infection has different levels? Vora confirmed. Yes, but that's only my theory. She then carefully laid out her line of thinking. Looking at the recent events in the hospital, my own charm seems pretty strong. So if you use my blood, it might block the culprit's influence, even for a moment. Vora then added in a rush. I thought it might be useful, but if it's a bother, just throw it out. Son. And appreciated her kindness, replying with a small smile. Thank you for your support. He sincerely praised this rare, good citizen, and his words warmed Vora's heart. This time, we will absolutely catch the perpetrator, and it will be thanks to you. I'll contact you again after this is all resolved. By the time Sun An finished up at the hospital, the sky was already turning the red of sunset. Officers who received the cooperation request from the Special Interspecies Complaint Department arrived at the hospital quickly. He stood on the rooftop looking down, muttering to himself, the culprit is probably still around here. He left the rest to the police and waited for an update. According to the police, the suspect wasn't at home, but even if they ran, they couldn't have gotten far. Based on that judgment, Sun An was forced to take action himself. He chanted an incantation on the vial of blood, combining it with a mana tracking spell, and dropped it into a free fall from the roof. The moment it fell, Sun An jumped right after it. Mid-air, he chanted a shock-absorbing spell, Wind Start. After sending a quick text to his colleague, he pushed the door open. A bell on the door chimed, announcing his arrival. Sun An had barely stepped inside when a soft voice welcomed him. Oh my, and who might you be? A succubus was lounging back in a chair in the center of the room. A crowd of men stared at her, their faces completely captivated. I don't remember summoning you, dear. The deeper he went into the shop, the stronger the charm's assault became. Sun An gritted his teeth and cursed internally. This maniac was pushing her forced charm to the absolute limit. This is worse than I thought. She studied his face. Still composed, are you? She immediately sat up, her voice friendly. You're quite the handsome one, aren't you? I like that. You're exactly my type. Too bad for her. Sun An was completely unaffected. He held out his official badge and announced coldly, Hello. I'm Sun An from the Special Interspecies Complaint Department. After investigating the recent incidents related to charm influence, I've identified you as the cause. He followed procedure with a polite request. Please cease using your power and come with me. The succubus just laughed, deliberately twisting his words. Oh my. Are you asking me on a date? Then her eyes went cold, looking at him like an object as her tone dropped. But I'm afraid I'm not really interested. She then poured her champagne on the floor, muttering, Besides, I hate people who don't obey me. The men around her acted like they were possessed, scrambling and fighting to lick the puddle off the floor. Get away, that's mine, one of them shouted. She then switched back to a sweet, friendly tone with an offer. So, don't you want to be my little pet? I'll treat you very, very well. The more Sun An saw, the more cautious he became. Something was very wrong here. This woman was so overconfident. For one person's power to cause this much obsession, could it be mana overflow? Mana overflow? The term described a state where a species completely loses control of their powers. The exact cause was still unconfirmed since it presented with so many different symptoms. But when a mana overflow occurred, the number one priority was always containment. Sun An saw how dangerous she was and quietly considered his next move. But those under the charm's influence were completely loyal to every single one of her commands. If he wasn't careful, they could all get caught in the crossfire, so he had to try talking her down first. Sticking with that cautious approach, Sun An tried the gentle route. Miss Nella, he said, you're in danger. If you keep using your charm like this, something much worse could happen. He pleaded urgently. Please, for everyone's sake, stop projecting your charm. Hearing this, Nayla let out a mocking laugh. How strange. To think you actually know my name." Then her voice turned cold and ruthless as she asked, "But really, why should I care about any of these people?" She said it with zero remorse. "Everything they did because they love me. It was all voluntary. I just went with the flow." As if on cue, the men under her powerful charm roared in unison, "That's right, we do it all for her, willingly." Junon sighed heavily. He knew it. This wasn't going according to plan at all. They refused to listen. Seeing that the soft approach was failing, Sunan decided to bring out the big guns and use overwhelming force. There was no other choice. He would have to be the one to break the spell for them. He decided to fight fire with fire, using a small vial containing the blood of Miva, a succubus with a powerful charm. Anyone under a mana-based spell would be bound by the magic in this vial. The blood floated in the air, radiating a powerful aura, as he combined it with a spell to amplify its effects. In that moment, Nayla's confident demeanor vanished, her eyes showing a hint of caution. A wizard? She knew that if he kept going, her self-made paradise would be blown to pieces. Nayla frantically gave an order to her followers. "Everyone, take him down immediately." Before they even got close, he smashed another vial of blood. As it shattered, the entranced men snapped out of their stupor for a moment. In that single instant, Sunan finished a complex chant. Wild magic surged through his entire body. It had been a long time since he'd strained himself like this. The magical circulation in his body was running rampant. Magic crackled around him like lightning. Sunan gave a grim smile, seeing them all as mere puppets before clenching his fist. He gave a simple command. On the floor, under the power of Zunan's magic, everyone in the room instantly lost all control of their bodies. The whole group was forced face down onto the ground. As if gravity had suddenly increased tenfold, Nayla felt a sharp, confusing pain as her body slammed down against her will. It hurt so much, and she couldn't move. And where exactly had she landed? Right in the puddle of spilled champagne that her adoring followers had wiped up a dozen times over. Nayla was disgusted. So filthy. After being worshipped like a goddess, this level of humiliation made her lose all reason. This is so annoying, so troublesome. I hate this. Even as she struggled, she could still arrogantly order her followers around her. "What are you all doing? Get up and protect me now." But Shunan stepped forward, crushing her last sliver of hope. "It's useless," he said. The entire shop was now a domain under the absolute control of his magic. He declared loudly, "Unless I give the order, no one here is moving an inch." For the first time, Nayla was completely terrified of Sunan, her face turning pale. She couldn't stop wondering, "No way. Is this guy a wizard?" In her desperation, she had a flash of insight, realizing the type of magic he was using. He was amplifying his charm with his own magic. Of course, he's just a useless wizard. At a loss, she suddenly noticed one of her admirers was holding a scepter-like weapon. In this dire situation, Nayla decided to take a massive risk. "Fine," she thought. "I'll go all in for once." She focused an intense amount of her charm onto the single man holding the staff not far from her. If they couldn't move or attack, her logic was simple. If completely insane, she'd just make him explode. The gem on the head of the scepter glowed with a blinding light, then detonated a second later, creating a world-shaking explosion. The blast seemed to completely engulf Shunan in its blinding light. Neela laughed maniacally, completely detached from reality. "That's more like it. Die, die," she screamed, failing to notice that the man she thought was dead was still standing in the smoke. All these little pawns. So disobedient, Sunan said, walking past her as if on a casual stroll. Nayla was shocked, speechless, her eyes wide and unfocused. Her mind was in chaos. What is happening? Junon lightly brushed the dust from his sleeve, calmly muttering to himself. Even for a wizard, using magic that recklessly is a crime. He gestured toward Nella with his foot and added, "Besides, with magic that dangerous, you'd be dead if it wasn't me here." She looked up at him, gritting her teeth in disbelief and trembling as she asked, How is that possible?" Standing in the chaos, he answered in a calm, gentle tone. "Everything you're experiencing right now is just an illusion I created. Nayla, stop this and snap out of it. Let these people go." Even at a disadvantage, Neela showed no remorse. Instead, she went even crazier, pounding the floor and screaming, "Never! Why should I do that?" In her frenzy, she vented every frustration she'd had since birth. "This dying nation has oppressed our kind from the very beginning. They tricked us, saying this power of ours was dangerous." Hearing this, Sunan's brow tightened as he patiently tried to guide her back. He wasn't lying to her. "Look at yourself," he pleaded. "Can't you see what's happening?" He could see the tragic end she was heading for, a steep price for misusing her power this way. "Stop using your charm magic," he warned. "If you continue, it'll destroy your mana and you'll never use magic again." The worst-case scenario? She could even die. But it was no use in her ears. Every word from Zunan now sounded like a threat. Enraged, Nella unleashed her full magical power, screaming, "Shut up! You don't get to order me around." In her desperation to defeat Shunan, she even unfurled the iconic demonic wings of a succubus. Her charm magic erupted like a vortex, warping the very air around them. Realizing Nella had lost all reason, he knew this just got tougher. She was completely out of control. Even if he knocked her out, the charm would just keep spreading on its own. With things escalating to the worst possible outcome, Sunan had to resort to his most extreme measure. The only way to stop a mana storm is a mana seal. At his command, a small white vial radiated an overwhelming pressure. Nella froze, her face twisting in agony as all of her strength instantly vanished from her body. Feeling as if she'd been hollowed out, she panicked, realizing her precious power was being ripped away. Once the vial finished its work, Sunan confirmed he'd collected most of her charm magic, leaving just the bare minimum behind. With some simple refining, I can restore it. But hearing those words, Nella's hatred for Shunan only grew stronger. Nella cursed him bitterly. "You damn monster. That wasn't done with any kind of normal magic." "I told you," he replied. "This is a kind of magic that shouldn't exist in this world." He then conjured his mana into a golden butterfly, its body burning like a flame. "Monster," he mumbled. "They all say that." Huh. Sunan had heard those malicious words countless times before, quietly brushing them off as always. He created a few more butterflies, and as they flew free, he said, "I've sent a signal. The police will be here soon. But before that, I need to ask you, do you remember the slime from near the town hall?" He described the creature in detail, trying to jog her memory. Days earlier, her charm magic had affected a werewolf official, causing the poor slime to be unjustly kicked out of his home. But her mind was completely gone. She just laughed manically. And what does that pest have to do with anything? All she could do now was scream at Shunan in a powerless rage. "Stop your rambling and give me back my power." I said, "Give my power back, do you hear me?" Just as Nella finished screaming, the police burst through the doors. Seeing she had no memory of her crimes, Sunan knew she was beyond saving. He simply turned and walked away. He thought, "Tun, it seems there were just too many victims for her to remember." To her, this was all just a fun little game, a way to test her strength, without a single thought for the lives she ruined. He left the scene for the police to handle, walking away and wondering, why are the victims always such good people? Zunan got a call from his boss, Ross. "Yes, Chief," he reported. "The culprit has been apprehended." Ross sounded pleased. "You worked hard today, Sunan. Go on home now, and just get that report to me by tomorrow." Sunan looked up at the sky. "No," he replied. "The case is closed. I want to tell Toon the news in person. I'm heading back to the office." Ross's tone softened. "That's a nice thought. But do you know what time it is?" Junan raised his phone to check. He hadn't even realized how late it had gotten until he saw the time. 8:39 p.m. The shock was enough to crack his glasses. Hearing the figurative shattering of his spirit, Ross instantly understood. "You didn't know, huh? Well, I'm working late tonight too." Her tone immediately shifted. "In that case, get over here fast. Toon and I will order some food." Shun-an mumbled an okay. But when he arrived, a massive feast was already waiting. The sight alone woke him right up. "What is all this?" Tun asked Ross excitedly. "It feels like a party. Can I eat all of this?" Ross clapped her hands with a grin. "Dig in. Today's a celebration, because we're getting Tun's home back." Tun looked at her with puppy dog eyes, shyly asking, "But how? Is it true? You really found my house again?" Sun-an gave a gentle smile and a small nod. "Yes, we did." He explained the situation, carefully leaving out the messy details about Nella. "We caught the culprit and verified 3 properties registered to you. The building's owner found the land use certificate with your name on it, so the process should be completed quickly. And of course, you're welcome to stay here in the meantime." Hearing he was getting his father's house back, Toon was overcome with pure joy. Really, he was so happy, he started losing his human form. Tears from the original slime form floated up to the ceiling as he spoke gratefully. "Thank you, everyone," before revealing his story. No one else would believe him, but the two of them trusted him completely. "Meeting Sunan," he said, "was a true stroke of luck." Toon was overflowing with joy, thanking Sunan again and again. But Sunan, not used to all this gratitude, just awkwardly rubbed the back of his neck. Rosser patted his back, saying he'd worked hard. Toon quickly added, "Thank you too, Rosser." After letting Toon's emotions settle, Rosser announced some good news. "We're going to remove that bench and plant a new tree in its place." Of course, the agency will cover the costs. It was their fault, after all. She added with a bright smile. You should pick whatever kind of tree you like. Toon lit up even more. Really? Can I do that? He asked, turning right to Sunan. I'm a big fan of flowers, Toon declared. Sunan, what's your favorite? Sunan, completely caught off guard, just stammered. Me? Pink apricot blossoms, I guess. That was all Toon needed to hear. Then pink apricot blossoms it is. Sunan, failing to read the room, started to ask why he wasn't picking his own favorite. A sharp elbow from Rosser cut him off fast. As long as Toon is happy, that's all that matters, right? Sometimes Sunan could be completely clueless. Rosser handed Toon a drink with a radiant smile. Then it's settled. To pink apricot blossoms. Cheers. Here's some orange juice for you. The other two pointedly ignored Sunan, who was now slumped over the table, trembling. Then, with a loud cheer from Rosser, the three of them raised their glasses. To Toon, for finally coming home. Cheers. And in that warm, friendly moment, the three happily clinked their glasses and drank their fill. Only after Toon was completely passed out from the drinks did Sunan finally begin his report. Just as predicted, it was a mana overload incident. Rosser's voice turned serious. Are you talking about Nayla's case? Sunan talked shop while clearing the table. That's right. By the time I arrived, she couldn't control her own mana anymore. He remarked, it seems the others lost consciousness because she used her charm ability so openly. Using a power like that in public is just asking to get caught. Rosser completely agreed. That's true. Still, the recent cases made Rosser think. Could all of these incidents really just be simple mana overloads? She wondered aloud. If that's the case, it's all too much of a coincidence, especially the hospital incident. Sunan agreed as he tied up a garbage bag. I tend to agree with you. Think back to the charm incident at Mentosur Hospital. Mev's mana also became unstable at that point. The way her charm ability spread through the lizardman's actions made everything seem deceptively simple. Then Nayla was accidentally exposed, which made it look like she had accomplices. Still multitasking, Sunan gave his opinion. Personally, I feel like we need to dig a little deeper into this recent case. Even though she knew it would be a huge pain, Rosser shared the sentiment. I think so too. Something just feels off, Rosser said grimly. The police have taken over Nella's scene for now. I'll let you know the moment we get new information. And thanks to your excellent work today, Sunan, we finally have a legitimate reason to intervene in this case. Her mind started to wander. By the way, if we keep solving cases like this, we'll get promoted in no time, right? Sunan just let out a long, unconvinced sigh. I haven't even been here that long, he pointed out. Is a promotion really even possible for me? Rosser flashed a grin that showed off her canines, looking utterly confident. And that, she said proudly, is why I'm your team leader. She gave him a few hard, encouraging pats on the back. You need to level up fast so people stop underestimating you. Sunan couldn't help but think about his recent promotions. He was already a level 9 civil servant. That put him right in the middle of the 12-tier hierarchy. He'd reached a level that takes most people 15 years to achieve. It was proof that he had worked unbelievably hard. But when he thought about this ridiculously fast promotion, Sunan didn't feel happy in the slightest. The memory of two figures surfaced in his mind. He told himself he didn't need to rush for promotions anymore. As Sunan was lost in thought, a text message suddenly broke his concentration. He glanced at it and said, Looks like the results from Mev are in. Rosser looked confused. What results? Sunan patiently started to explain. I had her investigate the two werewolves from the twins' case, just to be safe. That incident also involved a charm ability, remember? He let out a small smile as he read the text. But thankfully, it looks like a completely separate case. He could almost imagine Mev's flustered face. Her message read, Sorry for the late text. The test results came back, and the two blood samples don't match. Rosser was stunned by his thoroughness. You already looked into that too? She asked, amazed. I can't tell if you're just careful or downright scary. Sunan, ever polite, simply texted back, You helped me out a lot. Seeing he was online, Mev took the opportunity to send a friendly reminder. So, you'll be at the hospital tomorrow, right? You're due for a checkup. A shiver went down Sunan's spine. His voice trembled slightly as he asked, Did you have to remind me about the hospital? Ross just laughed at the poor guy's misfortune. Maybe he should have drunk less. After the party, Ross didn't hesitate to send him home. Zun, you can head home now. We're almost done cleaning up, but Tucson's going to have to crash here tonight. He asked with concern if his team leader was going home. She just cracked her neck with a resigned look. I still have a few things to finish. Then she added, We're always swamped with work. Li Jiang and Chisa pulled 3 all-nighters. Today was their first early day. Hearing his co-workers were nearly worked to death, Sunan was stunned. What? 3 days in a row? Team leader Ross could only hope. Hopefully, we'll get some new applications for the Civil Affairs Department soon. Junan pursed his lips, thinking. He understood exactly why this department was always so understaffed. But there's a ton of work, and individual skill is crucial. Ross gave a tired smile and a wave. Well, see you tomorrow. Shunan agreed in his head, but he wasn't about to sacrifice his own life working overtime. Yeah, see you tomorrow. By the time he left the office, it was already midnight. It was a beautiful night, though not a single cloud in the sky. Looking at the clear night sky, Sunan couldn't help but wish his future was just as bright. He let himself dream for a moment, then shook his head back to reality. Tonight, the plan was to take a shower and get a good night's sleep. He'd start writing the report tomorrow. Junan was in a pretty good mood as he was about to enter his building, but a sudden loud noise stopped him dead in his tracks. An incredibly forced smile spread across his face as he took a few seconds to process the noise. The neighbors are being awfully loud tonight, he thought. But it's not so bad. Trouble's bound to find them soon enough. But that's not what happened. The very next morning, an absolutely furious client was at the office. Are you seriously telling me nothing is wrong? He looked like he was about to explode and start throwing punches at anyone nearby. I'm usually a deep sleeper, he said, and I rarely wake up. Even if my upstairs neighbors were throwing a rave, I could sleep through it. Junan pulled out a spray bottle and gave the man's face a few spritzes, forcing a smile. That's a pretty amazing talent. After venting, the client calmed down and smoothed his hair. The more I think about it, something feels off. How can a new building be that noisy? He was absolutely certain there was something shady going on internally. Junan's face went dark. Through a strained smile, he thought, I should have checked it out last night. Turns out Li Jiang and Chisa were getting the same complaints. So, about the noise you mean the construction, right? He couldn't help thinking this was already the 39th complaint about it. Seeing this, he figured Li, Jiang, and Tuwai were probably feeling the exact same way he did. The centaur man glanced to the side and muttered, That construction noise has been bothering me for a while now. He continued to describe the awful response he got. It was less unhelpful and more downright rude. So I decided to go check on the workers myself and see what was happening. And you know what they told me? They said I was probably just being sensitive because I'm a centaur. The man complained. Their tone and attitude were just unbelievably rude. Hearing that trigger word, Sunan's head snapped up. He nodded. That statement was textbook racial discrimination. The centaur man pleaded, Please, you need to handle this complaint for me. We need to prove it's an illegal construction site. Sunan raised an eyebrow. Illegal construction? The man then showed him a video on his phone. They had filmed the entire building process in the dead of night, without permission from any residents to avoid being caught. They only used the dimmest possible lights, along with a pre-recorded audio track. This guy had come fully prepared for his complaint. This was an audio file of one of the construction workers. Immediately, a mocking voice came from the phone. This stuff happens all the time on construction sites. Kicking up a fuss about some falling objects is just crazy. And the final line sealed the deal. Typical of a centaur to be so sensitive about this kind of thing. Hearing that, the corner of Zunan's mouth curled up. His mind was made up. He was going to handle this case. Before taking the case, he guided the man through the procedure. Please fill out this complaint form. You can send the evidence to the address here. Later, while the team was gathered in the break room, a mountain of documents was dropped on the table. Li Jiang's face went pale as he looked through them, clearly terrified. He muttered, Why is everyone filing the exact same complaint? Ross looked around, completely bewildered. Good heavens, what is all this? Aren't these all the exact same complaint? Chi-Sa looked downcast as she replied, Yes, these complaints are almost identical, if not completely. The content is nearly the same, too. She read through a few, a headache already forming. With this many, she said, exhausted. It's hard to say someone's just playing a trick on us. But isn't this construction site near your house, Sunan? She asked curiously. Did anything happen yesterday? Sunan snapped his chopsticks, ready for lunch. Replying with his eyes closed, he said, Just a work thing I handled on my way home. After a loud noise rocks the area, Ross notices Sunan is involved and quickly asks him what happened. What in the world was going on? But as his colleagues wait for a dramatic story, he casually says he just went home, showered, and passed out, making them all yell, You did what? Sunan, munching on his lunch, explains coolly, My shift was over. I wasn't about to rush over to check it out, right? Besides, it was just one loud bang, then silence. He didn't think it was anything serious. Ross is at a loss for words, Muttering that he might have a point, Li Jiang sighs, adding his own worry to the mix. By the way, how should they handle this complaint? Turns out the construction company is a subsidiary of a massive corporation. Han-un, as in, the biggest conglomerate in the entire country? He continues weakly, worried there'll be trouble if they push too hard. A colleague just giggles. Oh my, are you scared? Li Jiang jumps, admitting of course he is, he's just a low-level civil servant. Ross rests her chin on her hand, looking over at Chi-sa. What about you, Chi-sa, are you scared of these big corporations too? Chi-sa, holding her tea, calmly replies, no. No matter how big they are, a corporation is just a corporation. She breaks it down with razor-sharp logic. Dealing with their complaint is actually a bigger hassle for them than it is for us. As she sees it, a major corporation's weakness can be a huge opportunity for its rivals, right? Ross is blown away, showering her with praise. That's our Chi-sa for you, the absolute pillar of the civil affairs department. She then turns to encourage the nervous wreck next to her. See, Li Jiang? Nothing to be afraid of. The moment Ross looks at him, Li Jiang gets a sinking feeling. You're not planning on sending me, are you, team leader? Ross just beams at him. Since it's a large-scale case, she's assigning a truly brave person to handle it. Li Jiang's face immediately lights up with relief. Great, that's perfect. But then Ross drops the hammer, ruining 2 lunches at once. Sunan will be going with him. She gives the newly formed team a mischievous wink. I hope you two can cooperate well during this time. Li Jiang is horrified, his desperate cry echoing through the office. What? And so, Team Shunan and Li Jiang heads out. The air between them so awkward you could cut it with a knife. Junan stares out the window, a single thought running through his mind. Teamwork? His mind flashes back to his team leader's explanation for this pairing. Teamwork is super common in our department. You know? Ross had said it with a cheerful, casual smile. And besides, you haven't had a chance to partner with anyone since you transferred here. This is a great opportunity to learn how others work and pick up some useful skills. Jun An, having just finished his meal, wore an expression of pure resistance. But he argued back, saying the office was already short on men. Was it really necessary for 2 of them to handle one case? Ross just smiled, shutting him down completely. That's exactly why this mission requires 2 people. Then, she hit him with a verbal jab that left him speechless. You tend to get hot-headed, so you need someone with you to keep things under control. Then she switched tactics to flattery, putting all her faith and hope onto a completely overwhelmed Li Jiang. I feel like Li Jiang is careful enough to manage the situation. Wouldn't you agree? And Ross finished with one last special instruction. So leave your office work to me. Just make sure you handle this case and come back safe. Back in the present, Sunan rubs his temples. After days of stress, he just wanted to stay in the office. And now this? After a long, heavy silence, Li Jiang finally forces himself to speak. Sunan, do you not like working in a team? He quickly clarifies, no, it's not that. Actually, before I transferred here, I was always in charge of cases like this myself. Hearing this, Li Jiang seems visibly relieved, but Sunan himself still looks pretty tense. Li Jiang quietly averts his gaze, a painfully forced smile on his face as he stammers. Is that so? That's a relief. He mumbles to himself. I was worried you might not like it. Sunan watches him, a thoughtful and hesitant look in his eyes. Then, after a few seconds of consideration, Sunan asks the question that's been bugging him. What about you? Do you not like me? The question hits Li Jiang like a lightning bolt, his jaw dropping open. He struggles to compose himself, rushing to explain. No way, Sunan. You're the hero of our entire complaints department. But Sunan looks away like a prideful cat, coldly bringing up the past. The first time we met, you basically drew a line in the sand with me. That's why I thought you didn't like me. From his tone, it's clear this has been bothering him ever since he first transferred to their department. Everyone else was so nice to him, and wanting to show his appreciation, he had bought drinks for the entire team. But just then, Sunan carefully held a glass, looking utterly lost as Li Jiang waved his hands, trying to explain. Li Jiang just rubbed the back of his neck, completely embarrassed. Jun An calmly repeated what he'd said. He told me, I'm not sure we're close enough for me to accept this drink. Shunan stubbornly stared out at the scenery, refusing to look at him. To this day, I still haven't forgotten what you said. The bitter thought stung him deeply. And then a sharp, whip-crack sound split the air. Li Jiang's actions were too fast, too shocking. By the time Sunan looked over, Li Jiang had already slapped himself across the face. He stared at him with a mix of shock and confusion. Li Jiang, why would you? After the slap, Li Jiang simply put his hand back on his thigh. His fingers curled into a fist, showing just how anxious he truly was. I'm sorry. I'll never do that again. It seems I've made a terrible mistake. Li Jiang kept his head bowed, his voice low, and choked with emotion as he tried to explain. Actually, what I wanted to say that day was that even if we aren't close, I still feel a certain connection. Li Jiang looked like he was about to cry, his voice tight. Because of my people's traits, we tend to overthink and jump to conclusions. And his confession revealed a key trait of the fairy folk: they're private, and they value relationships in their lives very deeply. This time, it was Zunan's turn to feel a pang of guilt. So, I misunderstood? Li Jiang continued to explain. Even a simple act of kindness from a colleague can make us read way too much into it. The more he talked, the clearer the insane level of overthinking became. He would wonder, does this person want to become my friend? Or maybe, have we already become friends? Things like that. By this point, Li Jiang's demeanor was much calmer. I was born to think this way. I guess I must have said something strange while trying to get my thoughts across. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Shunan was still in shock. I understand, he said after a beat, gaining a fresh perspective on interspecies diversity. Through this experience, Sunan started to see things in a whole new light. His life had essentially become an extension of his job, and it always seemed to be the people with the sincere hearts who got hurt. After thinking it over, Sunan couldn't help but feel a little sorry for his tall, sensitive colleague. Besides, he'd heard that the fairy folk often take a normal greeting as a sign of friendship, so that whole situation must have been incredibly difficult for him. To break him out of his funk and lift the gloomy mood, he suddenly spoke up. All right then, I'll try to be appropriately friendly. Sunan looked out the window, embarrassed, muttering like it was a business deal. If you find it hard, I'll set the pace for us. But you can't go getting yourself hurt over it later on. Hearing these words, Li Jiang was moved beyond belief, his face lighting up like he'd just seen a holy vision. He was overwhelmed with gratitude. Thank you, he said, for understanding me. Junan, not used to this kind of raw emotion, awkwardly changed the topic. Looks like we're almost there. They had definitely grown a bit closer. Falling back on his usual blunt tone, he asked, now that we have to work together, is there anything you want to ask me? Li Jiang lit up like a kid with a new toy, exclaiming with excitement. There is one thing I've been dying to know, he asked enthusiastically. What department were you in before? I heard you were transferred from another specialist unit. Junan finally looked him straight in the eyes, asking casually, I haven't told you that before? Just as he was about to reveal his past, something darted in front of the taxi. The department I used to work for was. Li Jiang jumped, shouting at the driver. What the hell is going on out there? Their skeletal driver, his whole frame rattling, explained. Someone just jumped out in front of the car, he shouted, trying to clear his name. Luckily we didn't hit them, but they just popped up in the middle of the road. Sunan calmly stepped out to check, asking softly, Are you okay? A young man with two-toned hair sat in front of the car, rubbing his sore back. He quickly replied, I'm fine, just fell from the surprise. Sorry, I was chasing a suspect and wasn't watching the road. Hearing that, Zunan's instincts immediately kicked in as he scanned the young man. His eyes locked onto the ID card hanging from his neck. Nam Yu, Special Multi-Species, Criminal Division, Team 1, he muttered quietly. The Special Criminal Division, that name's a real blast from the past. You're chasing a suspect? Nam Yu, who was clearly a rookie, simply pointed the way. Yeah, they ran that way, but I think I lost them. The moment he finished speaking, Sunan flung his chains in that direction. What the? Nam Yu screamed in shock. Shunan, calm as ever, expertly gripped the chains and pulled. It looked like a wild shot, but in seconds, the chain net dragged back a pink-haired bird person. The criminal landed right beside them, having no idea what just happened. Junan said flatly, just consider this a joint operation between the grievance department and the criminal division. Nam Yu was completely speechless. Sunan cleared his throat and said, I did catch the suspect, did I not? All right, he's been taught a lesson. Take him to the station. With his job done, he simply turned and walked away, leaving the incapacitated suspect for the other officer to handle. Next time you're running on the street, you should probably be more careful. And when you're chasing a suspect, hide your badge. The second anyone sees it, they're just gonna bolt. Nam Yu watched the whole thing, completely in awe. He quickly asked, if you don't mind me asking, what's your name? Sunan flashed his ID with a smirk. I'm Sunan, from the Special Interspecies Complaint Resolution Department. And with that, he turned to leave. If your boss yells at you, just drop my name. They'll start cursing me out instead. Nam Yu was just stunned, muttering the name in a daze. Sun An. Meanwhile, Sun An got into a taxi and casually said, Let's get going. Li Jiang was totally lost, asking nervously, Is everything taken care of? Sunan and gave him a quick rundown. Yeah, That officer said he was chasing a suspect and didn't see the car. Luckily, no one was hurt. Li Jiang let out a sigh of relief. Well, that's good. But once they were settled in the car, he couldn't help but remark on the sheer surprise of running into the Special Criminal Division. Even though we have worked with special forces a few times before, then he quickly added a word of advice. If you ever get a request from the Special Criminal Division, do your best to turn it down, push other complaints ahead of it if you can. Sun An looked confused. Why's that? Li Jiang explained, his voice low and cautious. Because they aren't like us. They only handle the most serious cases, and some of them get incredibly dangerous. I've watched from the sidelines a few times, and honestly, our department's methods just don't really mesh well. Sunan's voice was completely even as he replied, If that's the reason, then I understand it perfectly. The taxi started moving again. Sun An then asked casually, You were asking about my old job earlier, weren't you? I used to work for the Special Criminal Division. The statement hit Li Jiang like a lightning bolt, and he practically screamed, You worked there? At that very moment, back at the arrest scene, a succubus finally showed up. He asked Nam Yu, Hey rookie, you get the suspect? The young officer had just finished his report and immediately replied, Senior, he's right over here. Nam Yu was beaming with excitement as he shared the news. I almost lost him, but an agent from the complaint department happened to be passing by and helped me out. The succubus's face darkened instantly. What? An agent from the complaint department? But Nam Yu just kept smiling, happy to share the details. Yeah, I think he said his name was Sun An. The moment that name was spoken, though, the succubus went completely rigid, his voice a low growl. His emerald eyes flashed as a dangerous, unsettling aura poured off of him. Why would you bring up that bastard's name? From his tone alone, it was obvious these two had some serious history. Nam Yu froze for a second, confused. Huh? You know him too? The succubus shot back gruffly. The bastard you met. Sharp eyes, blonde hair, right? Nam Yu quickly confirmed. Yes, that's the one. Hearing that, the succubus slapped his forehead, a complicated look on his face as he muttered, I was wondering where he ran off to. So he's in the complaint department. He went to a place that doesn't fit him at all. No wonder I could never find him. Nam Yu was just curious. But why do you call him a bastard? The succubus ran a hand through his hair, his face twisting up as he snapped. Does he look like a nice guy to you? Just look at how he took down that suspect. What do you mean, why? And then, in that same bitter tone, he revealed the truth. Because he used to be the ace of the Special Criminal Division, that's why. Back with Sun An, a frantic Li Jiang was demanding answers. Are you serious? The Special Criminal Division, also known as the Special Criminal Forces, is the only department besides the Civil Division to have the word special in its name. While the Civil Division handles mediations, dispute settlements, and interspecies discrimination cases, the Special Criminal Forces Division deals with the most extreme levels of those same disputes. Basically, they're the elite anti-crime unit. Li Jiang was still trying to process his colleague's insane backstory. He never would have guessed Sun An was part of that division. But thanks to the elven race's trademark overthinking, Li Jiang's mind was racing. The more he thought, the paler he got. What am I supposed to do now? I had no idea. And I just sat there rambling on and on about how dangerous the Special Criminal Forces Division is. He remembered his own words with a cringe. Personally, their work style and mine just don't match. Did I totally badmouth his old unit right to his face? Did I offend him? He couldn't shake the thought, even after they arrived at their destination. He rushed over to Sun An, apologizing profusely. I'm so sorry if anything I said earlier was offensive. I promise I'll be more careful with my words. But Sun An just calmly adjusted the strap on his shoulder bag. He gave a small smile. It's fine. You didn't mean anything by it. He then added, Besides, I have zero regrets about the place I left behind. So he told Li Jiang to feel free and curse them out as well. Li Jiang was touched that the words didn't faze him, but that feeling quickly became confusion at what Shunan did next. But why was he heading that way? Sunan casually reached for a door clearly marked, No Unauthorized Entry. He simply said, Obviously this way. We're using the back door, right? The front entrance was already swarming with people he'd seen the numbers that visited the office this morning. Li Jiang found this even weirder, retorting, That's exactly why we need to go through the front. Zunan asked innocently, But why? Li Jiang adjusted his mask, sighing, because, believe it or not, the Civil Affairs Department has a reputation to maintain. He laid out his strategy, explaining that a public appearance would show everyone just how efficient they were. It would demonstrate the department's speed, which would be a huge advantage in any future negotiations. Zunan pictured ancient nobles meeting poor peasants, muttering, Are you actually trying to build public trust? Okay, I think I get it now. He couldn't help but add, this is the complete opposite of the special criminal force. Li Jiang gave a wry smile, explaining, well, they usually handle things covertly, so that makes perfect sense. Junan immediately turned on his heel. All right, front gate it is. On their way, they could see banners fiercely protesting the site, building homes while ignoring the mountains. A reckless construction plan that ignored nature and sustainable growth without a second thought. You are killing healthy people with disease. Walking past the signs, Sunan's brow furrowed in thought. It looked like something had been going wrong here long before construction even started. At the front gate, a crowd of residents was gathered, an angry shout rising from the center. That's not what I mean, just look. Can't you read the no unauthorized entry sign? How many times do I have to say it? There's nothing wrong with this building. But his voice was immediately drowned out by the roar of the furious crowd. They shot back instantly. What about that massive noise yesterday? You expect us to believe you? They demanded. I'm going inside to check. Junan watched, already exhausted by the drama. Just as tensions were escalating, flower petals suddenly appeared from nowhere. The petals came from Li Jiang. At some point, he'd produced a peach blossom branch and stepped forward to intervene. Excuse me. Li Jiang held out his ID, introducing himself before making a polite request. I'm from the Special Interspecies Complaint Department. Could I please ask everyone to step aside for a moment? A moment later, the peach branch in his hand vanished. Sunan couldn't help but be impressed by this method. He'd captured everyone's attention so naturally, with just one flower. A born genius at de-escalating a crisis. An older resident heard he was a government official and immediately grew welcoming. Officer, please, right this way. He didn't waste time, letting out all his frustration. Please, hurry up and arrest those bad people. Because of them, our lives are no longer peaceful. Li Jiang put on his standard professional smile, gently calming him down. Unfortunately, we don't have the authority to arrest them. However, we will investigate the situation ourselves. He quickly got things under control. So then, if everyone could please just wait a moment. Standing behind him, Sunan had a complex look on his face, thinking this wasn't a skill, it was a natural gift. Soon, thanks to Li Jiang's coordination, the crowd dispersed, and the two were invited onto the construction site. As a gatekeeper was guiding them, a construction worker suddenly rushed right past them. Junan noticed something strange about the worker, but said nothing to avoid tipping anyone off, and simply kept observing his surroundings. The gatekeeper led them to a small room, telling them, all right, please wait here for a moment, then slammed the door on his way out. The second the guard was gone, Sunan immediately threw up a soundproof magic barrier. The sudden action surprised Li Jiang. Shunan, why the magic all of a sudden? Shunan quickly explained, there are a few things I need to tell you before the site manager gets here. Shunan narrowed his bronze eyes, his tone dead serious. This building is going to collapse. Soon, being this new to the job, Li Jiang was stunned by the diagnosis. What? Li Jiang's voice shot up involuntarily. What are you even talking about? Zunan observed a wall for a moment, then said, we need a closer look, but the frame itself looks like it's about to fail. He was piecing together the data from the scene with the sounds he'd heard. That loud noise I heard on my way home before was probably a support pillar breaking loose from the frame. It seemed the structural problems at this site had been going on for quite some time. Hearing this awful news, Li Jiang was scared out of his mind, desperately asking what they could possibly do to make the structure stable. Junan quietly gave him the answer, magic. He then proceeded to lay out his entire theory on the situation. If this was indeed a large-scale spell formation, the Wizards Association was almost certainly involved. Shunan's hypothesis pointed to a case that could threaten many lives. He admitted he didn't know the exact deal between Kamen, the construction company, and the Wizards Association, but he was sure they had used magic to bind the collapsed section of the structure together and just kept on building. The biggest problem, however, was that no one knew how long this shoddy magical fix would actually hold up. Even though Sunan was his colleague, and he knew he wouldn't make something like this up, Li Jiang still cautiously pressed for more answers. How did he know all this? Sunan simply pointed behind him, stating the mana concentration was far too high. From a mage's perspective, Shunan explained that this wasn't a place the Wizards Association would be, making the focused mana here incredibly strange. That's why he was suspicious the moment they stepped inside. But after he saw the traces of magic on the support pillars, he began to understand the real cause of the problem. Hearing this solid and brilliant deduction, Li Jiang's opinion of mages completely changed. So this was the reason people always talked about wizards, huh? It was truly impressive how Shunan could pick up on details that ordinary people would completely overlook. This only made Li Jiang more curious about Sunan, but his intense staring was making Sunan feel a bit awkward. He cleared his throat and said, It's just my speculation. But he added that their team leader had probably anticipated all of this, which was likely the very reason the two of them were sent here. Listening to his words, Li Jiang couldn't help but agree. That definitely sounded like something their leader would do. He cleared his throat to offer his own input. Should we discuss this with the site manager? Sunan immediately shot him down. No. I think we should head straight back to the office, Sunan said, his experience in these matters showing as he calmly explained. If they mentioned the building was about to collapse, the people involved would deny everything, and besides, they couldn't dispel the magic themselves anyway. In this situation, the best course of action was to return to the office and figure out a proper solution. Just as he finished his sentence, the site manager arrived. Sunan heard the sound of leather shoes outside and quickly glanced over. He gently waved his hand, and the soundproof barrier instantly vanished. Looked like the guy was back. Before the manager even walked in, his voice echoed into the room. I hope you two didn't have too much trouble getting here. Shockingly, the man was a skeleton with purple flames glowing in his eye sockets. He smirked. Imagine sending a busy man all the way out here. This was a member of the skeleton race, known for expressing emotions through the smoke in their eyes. He held out a business card to introduce himself. A pleasure to meet you. I'm Zelo, the site manager for this construction project. Since the card was offered to him, Sunan took it and gave it a quick scan. After reading it, he couldn't help but furrow his brows. He was from the parent company? This gave him a bad feeling. Before they could react, Zelo spoke first. I heard there seems to have been a misunderstanding. The veteran skeleton chuckled, but his tone was more like an interrogation. Something about a minor incident within the company? Hearing that arrogant tone, Sunan couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Seeing Zunan's less than respectful attitude, Zelo instinctively hesitated. Rage began to build inside Zunan. They were informed a public official was here, yet he still walked in so casually. Was he planning to cover this up? Zunan's plan changed in an instant. No more being polite. He walked right up to him with a sarcastic sneer. It seems construction managers these days don't bother following workplace safety laws, do they? And that's all for now, folks. If you want to keep up with this series, go ahead and smash that subscribe button, and maybe tap the like button while you're at it. Thanks for watching all the way to the end.